After severing ties, I awakened an SSS rank talent 100 drop rate. Chapter 1 100% explosion rate. Brain storage. China, South China base. War God's mansion. A stretched Maybach slowly drove through the luxurious mansions and villas. In the back seat of the car sat an 18-year-old youth, wearing a Huanan 4th high school uniform. Sunlight streamed through the car window, falling on his chiseled, rugged face. The interplay of light and shadow highlighted his prominent nose bridge and deep-set eyes. He's so similar. The driver in the front, seeing this through the rearview mirror, couldn't help but think to himself. Chang Xing looked at the surrounding war god's mansions, his eyes faintly tinged with anticipation. This was a world where talent reigned supreme. 8 years ago, which was also when he first transmigrated, a crimson star streaked across the sky. The Doomsday Game invaded, and the entire world underwent a catastrophic mutation, turning into disaster beasts that descended upon Blue Star, wantonly slaughtering humanity. In a moment of crisis, all humans on Blue Star aged 18 and above awakened their talents, standing against the disaster beasts. After several years of counterattack and countless sacrifices, they finally reclaimed 20% of the territory from the disaster beasts. In China, people rebuilt from the ruins, establishing 5 bases: North China, South China, West China, East China, and Central China. As order was restored, those who awakened talents were called Awakeners. The so-called War God was an honorary title for level 50 Awakeners who had made distinguished contributions to human survival. This War God's mansion was a place specifically for war gods to reside. "Young master, we've arrived." The driver's words interrupted Chang Xing's thoughts. He then realized the car had already stopped in front of a mansion. "Young master." Suddenly being addressed like that, Chang Xing felt an indescribable awkwardness. When he first transmigrated, he immediately encountered the Doomsday Invasion. He had no memories of the original owner whatsoever. Afterward, relying on his experience from 2 lives, he hid and survived in the Doomsday. Finally, luck carried him until order was restored. Because too many people died in the Doomsday, there were too many orphans like him, and he was eventually taken in by the Welfare Institute in the base. It was ironic that when he graduated from high school and everyone collectively awakened their talents, he discovered that he was actually the biological son of Cheng Zhengyang, one of the war gods of the South China base. Thus, this scene unfolded. However, as Chang Xing got out of the car, the mansion's gate remained tightly shut, as if they hadn't noticed he had arrived. No one's home. The war god's long-lost true son returns, yet can't even enter his own home. This familiar plot made Chang Xing twitch the corner of his mouth. He had read many novels in his previous life. Then I'll wait and see who outlasts whom. Chang Xing directly went against the usual script. The doorbell was right by his hand, but he just wouldn't press it. Strange. Why is Uncle Sue taking so long to pick him up? I finally prepared my show of dominance. An hour passed, and it seemed the people inside grew impatient. Along with faint voices from behind the door, the mansion's gate slowly opened. A woman opened the door, preparing to check the situation outside. However, as soon as the door opened, she was so startled by the 1.9-meter-tall Chang Xing standing at the entrance that she stumbled backward repeatedly. Chang Xing glanced indifferently at the woman, his peripheral vision quickly scanning the interior of the mansion. The mansion's decor was a blend of Chinese and Western styles, both understated and luxurious. In the living room, a large cake was displayed, and people around it, holding ribbons, seemed to be preparing for someone's birthday celebration. And on the staircase nearby, Chang Xing saw a young man who bore some resemblance to himself. However, with his sudden appearance, Chang Xing clearly saw the young man's impatient expression instantly freeze. Then, combining that with the name on the cake, which was not his own, a scene of the true young master returning, only to have to knock to enter his home, then coming in to find everyone celebrating his return, only to discover it was actually a birthday celebration for the fake young master. Such a drama immediately flashed through Chang Xing's mind. Translate for me, what does show of dominance mean? After a quick look around, Chang Xing spoke indifferently. What show of dominance? I don't know what you're talking about, the woman stammered. Translate for me. What the hell is a show of dominance? Cheng Xing continued to press. What are you doing? Seeing this, the young man on the staircase quickly walked over, putting the woman behind him, and coldly shouted. You must be Cheng Xing, right? She's your mother. Is this how you treat your mother? I thought that being out there, you would at most face difficult living conditions, but I didn't expect. Facing the young man's counteraccusation, Cheng Xing gave him a cold glance and interrupted him before he could finish. Oh? How should I treat her? No one to greet me upon my return, so I have to knock on the door myself? Then let you all put on an act, making me think you're here to welcome me, when in reality it's for your birthday. And then to show the status of you, this imposter who has usurped the magpie's nest for so many years? At this point, Cheng Xing specifically looked at the cake, delivering the final blow. You agree, don't you? Cheng Yun. Hearing this, Cheng Yun and Lu Chunyan's eyes were filled with astonishment. How did Cheng Xing know their plan? Seeing their reaction, a hint of disappointment flashed across Cheng Xing's eyes. Enough! At this moment, a majestic voice came from behind. A middle-aged man who bore a 7/10 resemblance to Cheng Xing slowly descended the stairs. Before he even spoke further, there was an invisible pressure emanating from him. Is this what a level 50 awakener feels like? Seeing this, Cheng Xing naturally knew this person was his cheap father, Cheng Zhengyang. You are Cheng Xing? What is your awakened talent? Cheng Zhengyang showed no intention of blaming Cheng Yun or the others. Instead, he spoke directly to Cheng Xing. F-rank talent, drop rate increase. Hearing this, Cheng Zhengyang frowned. He naturally knew about the drop rate increase talent. It was a common talent with different levels. The highest was only D rank, which increased the drop rate by 1%, while F rank seemed to only offer 0.1%. Your father is one of the war gods of the China base. Cheng Yun awakened an A rank talent, Sword Saint. Aren't you ashamed enough with your trash F rank talent? In this current apocalypse where disaster beasts roam everywhere, the level of a talent is enough to define a person's future. Higher level talents always advance faster than lower level ones. After being called out by Cheng Zhengyang, Cheng Yun immediately looked at Cheng Xing smugly. Upon learning that Cheng Xing had awakened merely an F-rank talent, he knew he was secure. So what if he was the true young master of the Cheng family? With Cheng Xing's talent, what could he possibly use to compete for the resources Cheng Zhengyang gave them? Apologize to your mother immediately. That's your room. Cheng Zhengyang said impatiently, raising a hand to point outside. If he weren't a war god, needing to constantly be mindful of his influence on the base's populace, he wouldn't have given this useless biological son any chance at all. Following the direction he pointed, Cheng Xing saw a small, independent room located in the corner of the mansion. The small room was filled with miscellaneous items, clearly a storage room. Yuner, today is your birthday. Dad has prepared a gift for you. Cheng Zhengyang finished speaking, then instantly changed his expression as he turned his head, pulling out a long sword from somewhere and handing it to Cheng Yun. Seeing this, Cheng Yun's eyes lit up. Wow! A B-rank rare spirit cleansing sword. I love you so much. Cheng Yun hugged the long sword, his eyes brimming with excitement. He then boastfully looked at Cheng Xing, as if to say, see? So what if you're the true young master? Do you get this kind of treatment? This preferential treatment, even for Cheng Xing, who had lived 2 lives, made him clench his fists. He was utterly disappointed with these so-called parents. Ding! Detected transmigrator triggering true and false young master plotline. System loading. System loading complete. Please make your choice to receive rewards. Just as Cheng Xing was about to make a move, an interface appeared in his vision. This is a system. Cheng Xing had read many novels in his previous life, so he immediately reacted and started checking it out. Detecting current plot progression. Please transmigrator make a choice. Option 1. The wise submit to circumstances. Apologize, kneel to gain father's forgiveness, and from then on secretly contend with the fake young master, achieving the beauty of a family with 3 war gods. Reward. Hidden A-rank talent. Peerless Sword Saint. Oh, a hidden A-rank talent. Chang Xing's eyes lit up at this, but after reading the option, he couldn't help but inwardly scoff. 3 war gods in one family, how disgusting. Not choosing that. As a transmigrator, having lived 2 lives and survived the apocalypse since he was 10, he certainly didn't need the support of these so-called war gods. Option 2. Endure. As soon as option 2 appeared, Chang Xing didn't even look at it. Endure my foot. He was already being ridden roughshod over, and he should still endure? Option 3. If heaven had not birthed me, Chang Xing, the path of verbal abuse would be like a long night. Roast him. If he thinks it's shameful, then let's cut ties forever and show him what a toxic player is. Reward. Talent upgraded to SSS rank. 100% drop rate. Upon seeing the last option, Chang Xing chose it without hesitation. What true son of a war god? Whoever wants to be one can be one. He certainly wouldn't tolerate this nonsense. He had transmigrated without the original body's memories anyway. If he hadn't wanted to see the so-called war god, he wouldn't have even come to the door. Choice successful. Talent. Drop rate increase. F rank, SSS rank. Current drop rate. 100%. Chang Xing suddenly felt his hands itching, wanting to immediately go out to the disaster area and kill monsters. However, before he could make any move, Chang Zhangyang's reprimand came. Useless. What are you still standing there for? Hurry and kneel to your mother and apologize. Chapter 2 Severing Relationship. Hearing this, Chang Xing's thoughts returned, and he looked at Chang Zhangyang, who was not far away, and said coldly, Apologize? And kneel? Who do you think you are? How dare you speak like that? I am your father. Upon hearing Chang Xing's retort, Chang Zhangyang's brow furrowed, and he angrily rebuked him. He hadn't expected Chang Xing to dare to speak to him in such a manner. During the apocalypse, how many times did you see me, or look for me? And now you're using your father's identity to pressure me? When I was a 10-year-old child struggling to survive in the apocalypse, I didn't see you then. Chang Xing snorted coldly. If it weren't for his memories from 2 lifetimes, he would have been buried meters deep by now after those years of difficult survival. You! For a moment, Chang Zhangyang was speechless, rebuffed by Chang Xing, because what he said was true. He couldn't imagine how a 10-year-old child could have survived that disaster back then. Even he himself could barely take care of himself at that time. Brother, if you didn't want to return to the Cheng family, why did you come back? Ultimately, you still blame me for taking away Mom and Dad's love, for taking away your title as the war god's legitimate son. Mom, Dad, it's all my fault. If it's really not possible, I'll just leave. At this moment, Chang Yun, who was by the side, seized the opportunity to speak, and his words were immediately full of manipulative charm. Yuner, don't compare yourself to him. No matter what, you are our son. Hearing this, Lu Chunmei, who was nearby, became agitated and quickly went forward to embrace Chang Yun, as if he were her true son. So young, yet so vain, scrambling for fame and fortune. Who taught you that? Look at yourself, then look at Yuner. Can't you learn from him? Chang Zhangyang also followed up with a glare. To exchange an F-rank Chang Xing for an A-rank Chang Yun, he would have to be an idiot to do that. Always talking about vanity, scrambling for fame and fortune. Just be sincere. Don't put on that so-called fatherly air in front of me. I'm not buying it. While he enjoys the conveniences brought to him by being the so-called war god's legitimate son behind your backs, I had to survive alone in the apocalypse. How can you have the nerve to tell me to learn from him? Chang Xing retorted calmly. But he is your father after all. Lu Chunmei couldn't help but interject. My father? With that whole charade planned earlier, would a war god not know about it? When I was in trouble, he didn't look for me, didn't help me. Now, upon meeting, he puts on that so-called fatherly air to suppress me, even ganging up to suppress me. If I randomly picked someone off the street and called him dad, he'd do better than you. Chang Xing sneered, his face full of disdain. Shut up. Chang Zhangyang's veins throbbed on his forehead, enraged by Chang Xing. Shut up your ass. At the end of the day, isn't it just because my awakened talent isn't high enough, embarrassing your so-called war god family, If I had awakened an A rank or higher talent, would you have this attitude? Selfishness is selfishness. Don't try to have your cake and eat it too. Boom! With a loud bang, a powerful aura erupted from within the villa. The floor beneath Chang Zhengyang's feet shattered inch by inch, and the surrounding furniture, including the cake, instantly turned to dust. Chang Xing, standing at the entrance, felt a dull ache in his chest and was forced to retreat repeatedly by the shockwave of this aura. The strength of a level 50 awakener was fully displayed. Disrespectful sophistry. You are nothing like me, Chang Zhengyang. With your F-rank talent, what right do you have to compare yourself to Yuner? He. Of course I'm not qualified to compare to him. He's a chosen one with A-rank talent, a future war god. Chang Xing gave a cold laugh, without the slightest hint of fear. From just now until now, you have never looked at me directly. For him, you can twist black into white. But for me, there are only baseless accusations. To put it bluntly, don't you just want a son who can bring you honor? This is simple. From now on, you can pretend you don't have a son like me. You and I, we sever ties. As these words were spoken, the entire mansion fell silent, and Chang Zhengyang and the others were all stunned. They couldn't believe that Chang Xing would actually give up the identity of the Chang family's legitimate son. Only Cheng Yun's eyes gleamed with a hint of wild joy. It was then that Chang Zhengyang and Lu Chunmei realized that the young man before them, though resembling them, seemed like a complete stranger. They couldn't help but reflect, had they truly made a mistake? They had only been slightly biased. Could that also be wrong? Get out. Get out of here. I want to see what you can achieve without my support. However, Chang Zhengyang, still in a fit of rage, didn't care about anything else and directly roared. Humph. No need to trouble yourself. Chang Xing snorted coldly and turned to leave. Seeing Chang Xing leave so decisively, Chang Zhengyang was instantly breathless with anger. Lu Chunmei went up and gently patted his back, and the couple exchanged glances, both with complex emotions in their eyes. After calming down, they still couldn't understand why the once adorable child had changed so much after 8 years of not seeing him. Their hearts couldn't help but waver slightly. Dad, Mom, it's all my fault. If it weren't for me, Chang Xing definitely wouldn't have lost his temper so badly. Seeing this, Chang Yun secretly sensed something was wrong and quickly lowered his head, looking wronged, saying. Hearing this, Chang Zhengyang and his wife looked at the child who had been by their side for 8 years, so sensible, their eyes full of love, and quickly comforted him. How can you say that about yourself? It's clearly that rebellious son who is ignorant and has learned to quibble from somewhere. Exactly. No matter what, you are my dearest son. After Cheng Yun's manipulative performance, the insignificant guilt Chang Zhengyang and his wife felt towards Cheng Xing instantly vanished without a trace. All that remained was the image of him as someone who quibbled, defied his parents, and disrespected his elders. Mom and Dad, you are the best parents in the world. Cheng Yun's face immediately broke into a warm smile, and he stepped forward to embrace them both. After a brief moment of familial warmth, Cheng Zhengyang raised his hand and instructed. Someone. The war god's mansion's exclusive butler then timidly walked out. Find someone to clean up. And also, Cheng Zhengyang paused, then said coldly, publicly announced that the Cheng family has no such person as Cheng Xing, and then reclaim the resources prepared for him. From now on, my only son is Cheng Yun. Hearing these words, Cheng Yun, who was hiding in Lu Chunmei's embrace, had a flicker of joy in his eyes. Now, all of Cheng Zhengyang's resources were his. Hearing this, the butler on the side showed a difficult expression. What? Do you have an opinion on my decision? Cheng Zhengyang asked with an intimidating aura, without anger. Seeing this, the butler quickly said, Master, you haven't publicly announced anything about young Master Cheng Xing. Nor have you prepared any resources for him. Hearing this, Cheng Zhengyang's expression stiffened. It seemed that from the moment he learned of Cheng Xing's whereabouts until now, he had done nothing. However, thinking of this, he remembered Cheng Xing's earlier attitude, and his anger couldn't help but rise again. As a war god, when had he ever been cursed at like this, pointed at his nose? He then waved his hand, signaling to drop the matter. If Cheng Xing wanted to return to the Cheng family next time, he wouldn't let him enter the house unless he knelt outside for 2 days. The butler quickly bowed and left, subconsciously glancing at Cheng Yun before leaving. Because there was one more thing he didn't dare to say. All of this had been instructed by Cheng Yun earlier. Chapter 3 Adventurer. Coming out of the war god's mansion, Cheng Xing turned and got on the bus. Watching the bustling streets outside the window gradually become old and dilapidated, his mind filled with plans for the future. Anyone who reaches 18 years old will awaken, but the awakened talents are varied, and not everyone's talent is suitable for combat. Take Cheng Yun's A-grade talent, Sword Saint, for example. His talent is a typical combat talent. As long as he continuously kills Disaster Beast, it will be easy for him to advance to A-grade in the future. But that doesn't mean construction and research talents are bad. After all, the bus he is currently sitting on, and the entire South China base, are the creations of those awakener with architectural and research talents. Open panel. Name, Cheng Xing. Level, 1, 0 out of 100. Health, 100. Attributes, Strength 2, Agility 2, Constitution 2, Spirit 2, Free attribute points 0. Talent. SSS grade drop rate increase effect. 100% drop rate. Skills, none. Opening the unique Awakener panel, the information on it was very concise and clear at a glance. I need to find a low-level disaster area to test my talent's effect and level up at the same time. All Awakeners, to level up, have only one path. Killing Disaster Beast. Even those with architectural or research talents. And the level of talent only represents the strength of the talent itself, not the height of the Awakener. H District has arrived. Passengers, please. The bus arrival announcement brought Cheng Xing's thoughts back, and he immediately got up and got off. Unlike the A District, where the War God's mansion is located in the center of the South China base, the H District belongs to the base's edge. The surrounding buildings are noticeably more dilapidated, with old, small structures everywhere and no tall buildings. Not far away is a high wall tens of meters tall. It is said that this was the old urban area of Y City before the apocalypse, later transformed into the H District of the South China base. Cheng Xing skillfully walked through the alleys, warmly greeting the neighbors. Compared to the luxurious A District, he preferred the H District. It had more of a living atmosphere. Soon, Cheng Xing arrived at an old, dilapidated building at the corner of the wall. After navigating the maze-like stairwell, he finally returned home. Calling it home, it was actually just a small room of about 10 square meters. Besides a bed, a table, and chairs, there was nothing else. The only advantage was the low rent. Back home, Cheng Xing expertly searched under the bed and soon pulled out a machete and a travel bag. This machete was picked up in a supermarket not long after the apocalypse began and stayed with him until the South China base was established. Checking the time, Cheng Xing put the machete into his travel bag, changed into faded casual clothes, and went out. He walked east along the high wall. If it were as usual, he would walk west, where there was a secret passage. After all, in principle, unawakened individuals are not allowed to leave the city, but no one would leave the city before awakening unless absolutely necessary. It was different now. He had awakened and could leave the city through official channels. Soon, a huge steel gate appeared before him. The steel gate was open, and in front of it was a camp. This camp belonged to the Adventurers Guild, and awakeners who constantly ventured into the disaster area outside and earned money by killing Disaster Beast were called adventurers. The Adventurers Guild was not a strictly managed organization. It was established simply to facilitate the collection of Disaster Beast materials and to guide awakeners in leveling up and exploring the disaster area. Moreover, the threshold was extremely low. Any awakener could register. So for ordinary people, becoming an adventurer was the best choice for crossing social strata. Among the 5 major bases in China, many syndicates, families, and war gods grew step by step by becoming adventurers. This was also why Cheng Xing disdained returning to the Cheng family. In the adventurers' camp, there were many backpackers like Cheng Xing, and also many adventurers wearing expensive equipment, who were clearly higher-level adventurers. E-grade Disaster Beast Subjugation Team, seeking E-grade adventurers and above. Qingyun Mountain Disaster Area Adventure Team Recruiting, seeking D-grade adventurers and above. Newbie Leveling Self-Improvement Team, seeking E-grade combat talent and above. 1-on-4 Leveling Team, seeking E-grade adventurers and above. Price negotiable. The sounds of recruitment and team formation echoed continuously throughout the adventurers' camp. Chang Xing even saw a few classmates from his neighboring class. Chang Xing did not linger, walking directly to the counter. The person responsible for registration behind the counter was a young beauty, and when she saw Chang Xing, her eyes lit up. So handsome. Hello, I want to register as an adventurer, Chang Xing said, handing over his application form. After taking the application form and seeing the information on it, the smile on the counter lady's face subtly disappeared. F-grade talent? What a pity. Chang Xing did not pay attention to the counter lady's change. The registration process was not slow, and soon the counter lady returned with a nameplate. This is your adventurer ID plate. Please keep it safe. The initial registration plate is free, but if lost, subsequent replacements will incur a fee. The nameplate felt heavy in his hand, gleaming with a yellow metallic luster. A simple letter F was engraved on the front, and his name was on the back, simple and unadorned. To upgrade to E-grade, you need to reach level 10 yourself and participate in the hunting of an E-grade disaster beast. After listening to the counter lady's explanation, Chang Xing thanked her and hung the nameplate around his neck, preparing to leave the city. Hey, brother. Chang Xing hadn't gone far when he was suddenly called out to. A young man in his early 20s quickly ran over, then swiftly scanned the nameplate hanging on Chang Xing's chest. Like someone who had found prey, he quickly put on a professional smile. Being looked at like that, Chang Xing frowned slightly, then calmly asked, "Is there something you need?" His tone already carried a hint of rejection. He, brother, you just registered as an adventurer today, right? Are you planning to team up to level up? Lu Gu seemed oblivious, rubbing his hands and talking to himself. It's very difficult for newly registered adventurers to find a team. I have a team here, and I, an E-grade adventurer, will personally lead it. It's only 10,000 Chinese yuan per person per day. Thank you. I don't need it. So this was a salesman. Chang Xing shook his head and refused. Are you saying it's too expensive? Let me tell you, my price is already the lowest. Lu Gu did not give up, persisting relentlessly. His own talent was only E-grade, and he had painstakingly leveled up to 10. Then he spent a fortune to join an E-grade disaster beast, slacking the team, finally advancing to an E-grade adventurer. He had intended to rely on his E-grade adventurer status to join teams, but he was rejected by other teams due to his own insufficient strength. Without a team, he had no income, so he had no choice but to target those newly registered low-talent adventurers. As long as he took these small fry to a low-level disaster area and killed a few level 1 F-grade disaster beast, he could make a lot of money. Afterward, if anyone pursued the matter, how could a group of low-talent useless people possibly do anything to him? I don't need it. Chang Xing still refused, walking around Lu Gu and preparing to leave. Hey, don't be like that. You're going to team up anyway. How about this? I'll give you a 10% discount. My team is 4 waiting for 1, just missing you. Lu Gu stepped forward again. He had been eyeing this small fry for a long time. An F-grade talent useless person couldn't be allowed to escape like this. I wasn't planning to team up either. Chang Xing was repeatedly stopped, his brows furrowed. After a pause, he continued, "Besides, I don't have any money." Upon hearing the last sentence, Lu Gu's face immediately darkened. He hadn't expected to waste so much breath, thinking he had found a small fry, only to find out he was a pauper. What? You, an F-grade talent, are going out alone? Thinking this, Lu Gu spoke loudly without explanation, feigning indignation. His loud voice immediately drew the attention of others in the camp. Huh? Isn't that Chang Xing from Class 1? Didn't he awaken only an F-grade talent? How dare he go into the disaster area alone? An F-grade talent dares to go into the disaster area alone? Is he tired of living? Exactly. That's not how you seek death. Those students from Huanan 4th High School also recognized Cheng Xing, which then led to a flurry of discussions among the crowd. Facing the crowd's words, Cheng Xing's expression immediately turned cold, and he glanced at the instigator. For some reason, Lu Gu was startled and took a step back. Cheng Xing's inner thoughts remained undisturbed, and he retorted, "Is there a rule that one cannot leave the city alone?" "No, there isn't." Lu Gu was speechless for a moment. Then, under their astonished gazes, Cheng Xing entered the disaster area alone. After Cheng Xing left, Lu Gu finally reacted, saying viciously, "Pa! An F-grade talent acting all high and mighty. I bet this guy is dead for sure. What if he comes back alive?" "Comes back alive? Dream on. Do you think he's an S-grade talent?" Chapter 4. The explosion rate is really high. Passing through the city gate, the scene outside the city came into view. Unlike the civilized order maintained within the city, the area outside was connected to the old site of Y City, surrounded by ruins and overgrown with vegetation due to a lack of human intervention. Cheng Xing recalled a set of photos he had seen in his previous life. What if humanity disappeared? After discerning the direction, Cheng Xing headed straight south. Strictly speaking, everything outside the base was a disaster area, but the base's surroundings were guarded and patrolled by the Guardian Army. The Guardian Army was formidable. The entry requirement was D-grade talent or higher, and disaster beasts within a 10-mile radius of the base had long been cleared out. To hunt disaster beasts, one had to go further. Half an hour later, a city ruin appeared in his sight, and only then did Cheng Xing stop his sprint. It had to be said that after awakening, his constitution had significantly improved. He could run continuously for half an hour without even panting. If it had been before, he wouldn't have been able to cover the distance in under 2 hours. At this moment, Cheng Xing was noticeably more vigilant than when he first left the city. He listened intently and observed his surroundings, walking on a long-neglected, broken road with cracks overgrown with weeds. Along the road, Cheng Xing cautiously entered the outskirts of the city ruins. This should have been a small town before the apocalypse, but the once prosperous small town was now full of ruins, completely devoid of any human presence. After finding a relatively intact, dilapidated building, Cheng Xing quietly made his way to the rooftop. Having secured the high ground, Cheng Xing pulled out a tattered map from his travel bag and unfolded it. This was a map of the former Qingcheng disaster area. Various colored markings on the map outlined different zones, with grades from A to F marked sequentially from the center outwards. The A-grade zones, outlined in red, occupied over 50% of the central Qingcheng disaster area, with notes like, "Do not enter," and 10 deaths, no life, written beside them. Disaster areas originally had no zones or grades, but disaster beasts were transformed from native creatures on the former Blue Star, many retaining their territorial instincts. Then people assigned grades to the disaster beasts themselves, with every 10 levels forming one grade, from F to SSS, and also classified disaster areas from F grade to SS grade based on the primary disaster beast levels occupying them. The Qingcheng disaster area was a genuine A-grade disaster area, with a 55-level crimson-eyed rabid dog residing in its central ruins, an existence considered an elite among A-class disaster beasts. For instance, the area Cheng Xing was looking at, L-Town, was located in the outermost corner of the map. The primary disaster beasts found there were mostly 2 to 4 level mad rabbits, belonging to F-grade, and there were almost no E-grade disaster beasts, making it a typical F-grade disaster area. It was also the closest beginner leveling spot to the H-district gate. As his thoughts drifted, intense sounds of battle occasionally echoed from the ruins of L-Town in the distance. Cheng Xing squinted, gazing intently. 1, 2, 3, 4 teams are hunting. I'd better avoid them. Cheng Xing's purpose for coming here was merely to test his talent, so he naturally didn't want to expose his trump card. Fortunately, L-Town was very large. After determining his target, Cheng Xing quickly went downstairs and swiftly disappeared into the ruins. Chongqing moved forward while skillfully setting up some upgraded traps. He spent over an hour setting them up, and once done, he returned to the dilapidated building he had been in earlier and quietly waited for prey to take the bait. Although he had awakened, he was still just one person, so it was naturally better to be cautious. Time passed little by little, and soon one of the traps showed activity. Chongqing's eyes lit up. He put down his backpack, taking only a machete, and quickly went downstairs, running towards the trap. As he got closer, growls gradually emerged from ahead. Nearing the edge of the trap, Chongqing expertly found a corner of a wall and cautiously peeked out to observe the situation in the trap. Hiss! He saw a 1-meter-long rabbit-like disaster beast with crimson eyes, its huge mouth filled with gruesome fangs wide open, constantly emitting growls. The surrounding area was a mess. Upon closer inspection, a rebar had pierced its hind leg, firmly stuck in the concrete ground, blood staining its glowing fur. Its other intact hind leg thrashed in impotent rage, shattering piece after piece of concrete. Disaster beast. Mad rabbit. Level 2. HP 100/120. Attributes: Strength 3, Agility 6, Constitution 2, Spirit 2. Talent: F-grade sprint effect. Movement speed increased by 10%. Skill: Stomp LV.1. After a quick look at the Mad Rabbits panel, Chongqing didn't rush forward immediately. After all, his talent wasn't a combat talent. Although awakening had significantly boosted his physical stats, with these low stats in a disaster area, any random disaster beast could easily overpower him. The Mad Rabbit continued its frantic destruction, which also caused its wounds to deepen and its movements to slow down. After a while, it collapsed to the ground, unconscious. The time was ripe. Chongqing then approached with his knife. Swish! Just as he got within a meter of the Mad Rabbit, a figure lunged. Not good! Chongqing instinctively blocked with his knife. Sparks flew, and upon closer inspection, the previously motionless Mad Rabbit suddenly surged, biting down on the blade of the machete. Crunch! With a teeth-grinding sound, the machete snapped. Chongqing's eyes narrowed. He quickly sidestepped and simultaneously pulled his knife. The broken blade slid across the Mad Rabbit's neck. A huge resistance came from the hilt. Chongqing gritted his teeth, veins bulging on his arm, and suddenly exerted force. Rip! The broken blade slit its neck. The Mad Rabbit's crimson eyes instantly dimmed, and it collapsed weakly. Killed Mad Rabbit. Experience +5. Huff, huff. Almost messed up. Chongqing took a deep breath, his knife-holding hand trembling slightly from excessive force. He hadn't expected the Mad Rabbit's counterattack to be so terrifying. He thought back to hunting Mad Rabbits before he awakened, always waiting for several hours before approaching, and couldn't help but inwardly praise his own cleverness. After awakening, I'm still a bit too overconfident. Next time I need to be careful. Something dropped. Just as Chongqing was reflecting, his peripheral vision inadvertently swept across the Mad Rabbit's corpse, and he was immediately drawn to it. Walking closer, he saw a long knife emitting white light and a white light cluster lying quietly beside the Mad Rabbit's corpse. Chongqing picked up the long knife to examine it and couldn't help but exclaim. It was actually a finished weapon standard Tang Dao. Grade: F-grade. Effect: none. According to his understanding, killing disaster beasts, in addition to leveling up, could also randomly drop items, but the drop rate was extremely low, and even if something dropped, it would usually only be some materials. It was very rare for someone like Chongqing to directly drop a weapon. Weapons with grades like this were very expensive because they were products of the apocalypse, and their strength was completely different from those forged by ordinary people. Generally speaking, there were only two ways to acquire such equipment. One was by killing disaster beasts, and the other was by collecting materials and having them forged by someone with a forging talent. So, even though this weapon was only F-grade, its market price had already exceeded 50,000 Chinese yuan. Wow, the drop rate is really high. What's this again? After the surprise, Chongqing picked up the other light cluster. It felt empty in his hand, but the next second, the Awakener system's feedback came. Talent: Sprint. Grade F. Talent effect. Movement speed increased by 10%. Chapter 5. Thanking nature for its gifts. Talent. Looking at the information fed back by the system, Chang Xing couldn't help but freeze for a moment. After making sure he hadn't seen wrong, he was greatly shocked. I've never heard of talent dropping before. According to his understanding, whether it was level, equipment, or even the rarer skill books, all could be improved or obtained by killing Disaster Beast. Only talent was unchangeable for each person upon awakening. Under the same level, equipment, and skills, the combat power of a high-level talent was overwhelmingly superior to that of a low-level talent. The greater the difference in talent level, the more obvious the gap. With limited resources naturally tilted towards awakeners with high-level talents. Hence the saying, talent is supreme. But the current situation shattered all of that. This matter cannot be told to anyone. As Chang Xing's thoughts raced, he made a very decisive choice. He was very clear about the principle of possessing a treasure makes one a target, especially since this discovery could overturn the existing order. Once exposed, it would undoubtedly affect many people's interests. At that point, he truly wouldn't know how he died. However, Chang Xing felt no fear in his heart. Rather, he felt more excitement. If I'm weak, exposure means I'm a fish on the chopping block. If I'm strong, exposure means I choose not to eat beef. Order is established by the strong. And I happen to have the capital for it. Chang Xing's gaze was firm. After 8 years of crossing over and struggling to survive, he had finally reached the end of his hardship. Use. Immediately, he clenched his palm, and the ball of light in his hand transformed into specks of fluorescent light that merged into Chang Xing's constitution. Obtained new talent. Sprint. As the fluorescent light entered his body, Chang Xing felt his body become much lighter. Open panel. Name, Chang Xing. Level. 1, 5 out of 100. Health. 100. Attributes. Strength 2, Agility 2, Constitution 2, Spirit 2 free attribute points 0. Talents. SSS grade drop rate increase, F grade sprint. Skills, none. Looking at the new talent on his panel, Chang Xing grinned. Although it was just an ordinary F grade talent, it was a good start. At this moment, there was movement from another trap in the distance. Chang Xing's eyes lit up, and those ferocious disaster beasts gradually turned into treasure chests of varying sizes in his eyes. He put away his broken saber, took out the newly dropped standard Tang saber, and carefully crept towards the other side. A few minutes later, Chang Xing arrived at the broken intersection of the town. Hearing the movement coming from the left side of the intersection, he immediately pressed himself against the abandoned building on the left and cautiously moved to the corner of the intersection. He peeked out, and the scene in the distance came into view. Several hundred meters away, an overpass had collapsed, with the broken bridge lying across the road. A mad rabbit was pinned underneath, with only half of its body exposed. Blood stained the surrounding ground, and only intermittent breaths came from its mouth. Seeing this, Chang Xing was overjoyed. The mad rabbit's greatest strength was its speed, and his traps were mainly designed to restrict movement. As long as their mobility was restricted, even an ordinary person could essentially kill them. This mad rabbit was clearly easier than the last one. Big treasure chest, I'm coming. Chang Xing prepared to go up and harvest it with his saber, but before he could emerge from the corner, a dark figure first walked out of a distant alley. Chang Xing's movements paused. He looked closely, and it turned out to be another mad rabbit. The newly appeared mad rabbit, sniffing the bloody scent in the air, its crimson eyes spinning wildly, stared intently at its kin pinned under the ruins. Its huge mouth opened and closed, and viscous liquid dripped from its ferocious maw onto the ground. Without a word, it sprinted forward and bit down on its kin's head. If mad rabbits had sentience, they would surely exclaim, "Thank you, nature, for your bounty. My big treasure chest." Watching the mad rabbit devour its kin, Chang Xing's eyes widened in anger. He gripped his Tang saber and quickly retreated behind cover. Are you kidding? Facing a mad rabbit in peak condition, he hadn't let confidence go to his head yet. What was his strength? And what was the mad rabbit's strength? It was a pure numerical rolling, but the unwillingness in his heart still drove him to peek out again. Disaster Beast. Mad Rabbit. Level 3. Health 140. Attributes: Strength 4, Agility 7, Constitution 3, Spirit 2. Talent: F-grade Sprint. Skills: Stomp LV.1. Seeing the Mad Rabbit stats, Chongqing very decisively gave up immediately. It was even stronger than the previous one. Then, just as he was about to pull back, the Mad Rabbit's ears twitched slightly in the distance. It suddenly turned its head, their eyes met, and it was particularly awkward. Run! Chongqing decisively ran, his figure like an arrow, disappearing down the street in a flash. However, the Mad Rabbit's speed was not slow. It followed closely behind, moving much faster than Chongqing. Seeing this, Chongqing plunged into the surrounding alleyways, trying to use the buildings to obscure his figure. But the Mad Rabbit seemed to have locked onto him, following relentlessly. Hearing the increasingly close movement behind him, Chongqing's alarm bells immediately went off. He tilted his head and sharply turned his body, and a ferocious maw bit fiercely where his head had just been. "I'll risk it." Chongqing gritted his teeth, his hand movements faster than his thoughts. He pushed off with his feet, twisted his body, drew his saber, and slashed out, the saber light forming a ring. The Mad Rabbit that pounced on him paused. A bloody gash burst open diagonally from right to left. This strike had disabled the Mad Rabbit's left eye. Tear! The Mad Rabbit let out a painful roar, shaking its head incessantly. Its other intact crimson eye twisted wildly, and liquid splattered from its mouth. Chongqing, having succeeded with one strike, did not linger. He continued to run towards a certain corner of the town. Injured beasts are more dangerous. The Mad Rabbit's wildly twisting crimson eye suddenly fixated, locking onto the departing Chongqing, and continued to chase him. The Mad Rabbit, having lost one eye, walked crookedly, but its speed was far greater than before. After a few minutes of sprinting, Chongqing finally saw the abandoned house with his mark. His brow relaxed, and he quickly entered and closed the door. After entering the house, Chongqing hid in a corner, gripping the saber hilt tightly, slowly gathering strength in his feet. Listening to the rapidly approaching movement outside, Chongqing became even calmer. Bang! With a loud bang, the house's stainless steel security door was violently forced open, its frame twisted beyond recognition. The Mad Rabbit rushed into the house, shaking its head. That last impact was clearly not light. Swish! However, before the Mad Rabbit could recover, a whoosh sounded. A steel bar shot out from the dark corner on the right towards its hind leg. The sight of the steel bar piercing its hind leg did not occur. The moment the steel bar appeared, the Mad Rabbit's hind leg seemed to blur, and then the steel bar was already under its foot, twisted beyond recognition. Before the Mad Rabbit could react, a flash of saber light appeared. Chongqing emerged from its left blind spot, closing in and slashing out. A new saber mark immediately appeared on the Mad Rabbit's face, forming an X shape with the previous one. The Mad Rabbit was completely plunged into darkness. The Mad Rabbit, having lost its vision, wildly crashed around the house, trying to find that hateful human. Chongqing easily dodged with his saber. Sunlight streamed through the window onto the blade, a cold gleam radiating. Now, the tables have turned. Chapter 6. Four-sided / the blind Mad Rabbit scurried around the small abandoned house like a headless fly, making the house shake precariously. Chongqing didn't waste time. Whenever an opportunity arose, he closed in and left a long, deep bloodstain on the Mad Rabbit's body. At the same time, each attack would provoke a counterattack from the Mad Rabbit, but Chongqing was also very cautious. After a successful strike, he would retreat and continue to look for opportunities. The Mad Rabbit's health rapidly decreased with each successive attack, and a few minutes later, the Mad Rabbit no longer had any strength left to counterattack. After Chongqing's direct strike to its heart, it completely collapsed. Killed LV.3 Mad Rabbit, EXP +10. Immediately, a book emitting a faint blue light fell from the Mad Rabbit's corpse. Chongqing's eyes lit up, and he quickly walked over to pick it up. Skill book, 4 direction slash. Quality, B rank. Skill effect, unleashes 4 slashes at extremely fast speed, each slash dealing 150% damage. Skill restriction, requires a weapon with a slashing effect equipped. It's actually a B rank skill book. The item that dropped this time once again pleasantly surprised Changxing. Skill books could be said to be the rarest drops among all disaster beasts, as their drop rate was extremely low. According to statistics, the probability of a skill book dropping from killing a disaster beast is 0.1%, while finished weapons are 1%, and even disaster beast materials only have a 20% drop rate. The above are still probabilities for dropping items of the same level. For an F-rank disaster beast to drop a B-rank skill book, this probability is similar to winning the lottery jackpot in his previous life. The value of a B-rank skill book seems to be around 20 million, right? Changxing carefully recalled the value of B-rank skill books. Even as someone who had lived 2 lives, he couldn't help but feel an urge to immediately pack up and return to the city to sell the skill book. As soon as this thought appeared, he suppressed it. Changxing glanced at the Mad Rabbit's corpse. The lingering feeling of surviving a disaster had not yet dissipated. He was still too weak. A mere LV.3 Mad Rabbit could make him so disheveled. If it weren't for the traps he had set beforehand, his chances of winning would have been minimal. The most important thing now is to improve my strength. Money can be earned any time, but life is only one. It's just this skill restriction. I wonder if a Tang Dao counts? Never mind. I'll try it first. Thinking this, Changxing no longer hesitated and directly used the skill book. Learn skill. For direction slashed. Looking at the system prompt, Changxing suddenly felt a piece of knowledge appear in his mind. For direction slash. Changxing's hand movements were swift, his body moving with the blade. With one step, the Tang Dao's sharp slashing speed cut through the air. For a moment, sword light overflowed, and 4 slash marks appeared on a load-bearing pillar in the abandoned house, which then collapsed with a crash. Looking at his masterpiece, Changxing gasped. As expected of a B-rank skill, this destructive power is truly impressive. If he had had the skill earlier, Changxing wouldn't have been so disheveled. Now, he truly had the strength to face the Mad Rabbit head-on. However, the sudden falling debris from the ceiling interrupted Changxing's thoughts. The house, after being ravaged by both the Mad Rabbit and Changxing, finally couldn't hold up and began to collapse. Changxing was quick-witted and rushed out before it completely collapsed. Continue leveling up. Changxing patted the dust off his body, his fighting spirit surging, and without looking back, he walked towards the next trap. This SSS rank talent with a 100% drop rate was truly satisfying. However, the next few traps weren't triggered by any disaster beasts, which made Changxing feel a bit helpless. Have they all gotten smarter? There was no choice but to continue to the next trap. The next trap was similar to the previous one, also on an abandoned overpass. This time, Changxing didn't come up empty-handed. A Mad Rabbit was venting its frustration on the broken overpass. There were no wounds on its body, clearly indicating it hadn't fallen for the trap. Perfect. Let's try out the new skill. Changxing checked the monster's information. It was just a LV.2 Mad Rabbit, perfect for testing. Changxing's brazen appearance immediately caught the Mad Rabbit's attention. Upon seeing a human, the Mad Rabbit seemed to have discovered something delicious. Its wildly spinning red eyes immediately fixed, staring intently at the slowly approaching figure in the distance. Its limited intelligence couldn't comprehend why this seemingly weak being in front of it wasn't afraid of it. Driven by instinct, the Mad Rabbit opened its bloody maw and charged towards Changxing at an extremely fast speed. Changxing's eyes sharpened. He stepped forward and drew his blade directly. For direction slash. The next moment, figures intertwined, accompanied by overflowing blade light, for bloodlines appeared on the Mad Rabbit's body, and then blood splattered as it fell powerlessly to the ground. Instant kill. The damage from 4 direction slash was even stronger than Changxing had imagined. If I use it continuously, I should be able to cast it about 4 more times. Changxing looked at the Tang Dao in his hand and muttered to himself. He then sheathed his blade and walked towards the mad rabbit's corpse. This time, the mad rabbit didn't drop anything rare, only 2 F-rank or materials. But Cheng Xing didn't mind and directly put them away. These were all money. Each piece could sell for 500 yuan. Then, next, let's test where my limit is. After tidying up, Cheng Xing didn't linger and continued to search for suitable disaster beasts in L-Town. This time, his target was no longer limited to the traps he had set earlier. Instead, he went wherever there were disaster beasts. With an SSS rank talent in his left hand and a B rank skill in his right, even a passing dog, a disaster beast, would have to take a slash. Meanwhile, on the other side of the L-Town disaster area, everyone, be careful. Although this is an F-rank disaster area, if you're not careful, you could still lose your lives here. Lu Gu looked at the 4 novice adventurers behind him, sneered inwardly, and then spoke. Listening to his words, 3 of them turned even paler with fright, while only 1 adventurer in a black robe remained unmoved. However, you don't need to be afraid. With me, an E-rank adventurer, escorting you, you will be fine. After spreading a wave of fear, Lu Gu immediately took the opportunity to boast about himself. The 3 frightened individuals moved closer to Lu Gu. Seeing them like this, Lu Gu smiled with satisfaction, but his expression froze when his peripheral vision caught sight of the black-robed figure not far away. This person had maintained the same distance from him from the beginning until now, completely covered from head to toe in a black robe. He hadn't said a word, and it was impossible to tell if he was male or female. He looked very suspicious. If he could, Lu Gu wouldn't have wanted to bring him along, but there was no choice. He paid too much. Lu Gu's wandering thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the exclamations of the 3 people around him. A mad rabbit had appeared in front of them at some point, glaring at them menacingly. Those 3 new adventurers had never seen such a sight and immediately collapsed to the ground in fright. Don't panic, watch me. Knowing it was time to perform, Lu Gu quickly stepped forward, drew the sword and shield from his back, and charged. After dozens of exchanges, he dealt with the mad rabbit and then, under 3 admiring gazes, returned to the team. Now do you understand how worthwhile this leveling caravan is? But boss, we've only gained a little experience. At this rate, how long will it take us to level up? Before Lu Gu could boast, one person immediately raised his hand and asked, "What do you know? Slow and steady wins the race. Leveling up cannot be rushed." Lu Gu glared at that person and then excused himself. Besides, there are many mad rabbits. What's there to be afraid of? After speaking, Lu Gu, fearing that someone might notice something, didn't give them a chance to speak and quickened his pace. The other 3 exchanged glances and had no choice but to follow. Only the black-robed person followed unhurriedly behind. Strange? Where are the mad rabbits? Have they all been killed? However, as they delved deeper into L-Town, Lu Gu grew increasingly puzzled. Along the way, apart from the mad rabbit they first encountered, they hadn't seen a second one. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Gu and his group finally saw the tail of a mad rabbit around a corner. Lu Gu was overjoyed. If no more monsters appeared, he wouldn't be able to fool those 4 suckers anymore. However, when they went to look, they couldn't help but gasp. The mad rabbit was leaning against the wall, with 4 clear and gruesome wounds on its body, long dead. How unlucky! Lu Gu left impatiently, with the 3 newcomers close behind. At this moment, the black-robed person, who had remained silent, uncharacteristically stopped. A clear and pleasant voice, like silver bells, rang out. What a fast blade! Chapter 7 E-Level Blood Mantis. The scorching sun blazed. Outside Qingcheng, in the L-Town disaster area. For direction slash. As Cheng Xing's mind stirred, another skill was unleashed, and a mad rabbit fell. Cheng Xing's breathing was clearly not as steady as before. This was the 15th time he had used a skill. All in all, it took less than an hour. After a series of tests, Cheng Xing understood why B-class skills were so expensive. After continuously using 4 directions slash 5 times, he felt a faint sense of exhaustion, and then after about 5 minutes of rest, he could cast it again. Such power combined with such consumption greatly improved his combat strength. Killed LV3 Mad Rabbit. Experience plus 10. Level up LV1, LV2. Free attribute points plus 3. Along with the system prompts, Chang Xing's exhaustion from repeatedly using skills immediately vanished, and the cells in his body seemed to experience an indescribable pleasure. Huh? Leveled up. Chang Xing sheathed his Tang blade, surprised. This leveling speed was much faster than he had imagined. But then again, he was soloing now, and all the experience from killing disaster beasts went to him alone. So his leveling speed was naturally much faster. According to his understanding, when new adventurers formed teams to level up, it was usually a 5-person team. This configuration could generally handle disaster beasts 1 to 2 levels higher with ease. If there were too many people, the experience would be too diluted, leading to inefficient leveling. The higher the talent level, the fewer people required in a team. As for solo leveling, that was only for combat talents of S-class or higher. Open panel. Name, Chang Xing. Level 2, 5/200. Health 120. Attributes: Strength 3, Agility 3, Constitution 3, Spirit 3, Free attribute points 3. Talents: SSS class drop rate increase, F class sprint. Skills: B class 4 direction/LV1. With the level up, Chang Xing's all-around attributes increased by 1 point. Although the increase was very small, the actual change was still very obvious. After a simple assessment, Chang Xing allocated the free attribute points in a 1 strength, 2 agility manner. After allocating the attribute points, his panel showed that he was almost on par with a level 2 Mad Rabbit. Oh? Something dropped too. After closing the panel, Chang Xing noticed that this Mad Rabbit had dropped a ring emitting a faint green glow. Soul of the Mad Rabbit. Quality: E-class. Effect: Agility plus 2. Chang Xing didn't hesitate, equipping it directly, and then continued to traverse through L-Town. With his combat strength increased, he no longer needed to be as cautious as before. As long as nothing unexpected happened, he could pretty much walk sideways through the entire L-Town. Time flew by, and in a blink of an eye, the sun set in the west. As dusk deepened, dark clouds obscured the moon, making the entire L-Town disaster area increasingly perilous. Compared to daytime, the death rate in the disaster area at night was much higher. Today is truly cursed. Why haven't I seen a single Mad Rabbit? Lu Gu's face was full of impatience, muttering incessantly to himself. He originally didn't want to stay in the disaster area late at night, but he was afraid that the few people behind him would ask for their money back. After all, on this trip, they had only encountered 2 Mad Rabbits. The 3 people who were previously scared were now idly following behind, chatting back and forth. It's been a whole day, and we've only encountered 2 disaster beasts? Are we being scammed? I think it's possible. Anyway, I don't care. If I don't get 10 experience points today, I'm definitely reporting him when I get back. Listening to the idle chatter of the 3 people behind him, Lu Gu suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Although he had been a swindler before, he had only stepped on the Adventurers Guild's bottom line, exaggerating at most, which was false advertising. But if it were like now, killing only 2 disaster beasts in a day and returning, if reported, the Adventurers Guild would definitely investigate, and at worst, his adventurer status might be revoked. Helpless, Lu Gu could only brace himself and continue forward. It was just that he seemed not to have noticed that they had already reached the edge of L-Town, and further south was the outskirts of Qingcheng. Click-clack, click-clack. At this moment, a faint sound suddenly came from one side, and Lu Gu's eyes lit up. Finally, some action. Lu Gu rushed over impatiently. The 3 followed closely behind, afraid of missing out on experience. However, the black-robed person at the end of the team stopped. Something's wrong. After passing through a row of abandoned houses, a weed-choked plaza came into view. A dark mass writhed in the middle of the plaza ahead. Lu Gu, who was the first to arrive, also felt something was amiss. The dark mass was too large, at least 5 or 6 meters long. As a gust of night wind swept through, dispersing the clouds and revealing the moon, moonlight cascaded down, and the scene ahead instantly became clear. However, upon seeing the scene ahead, all four of them involuntarily constricted their pupils, and their faces instantly turned deathly pale. On the plaza, several 2-meter-long, cockroach-like disaster beasts lay motionless. On their corpses, a nearly 3-meter-long kin, with a blood-filled mouth full of grotesque mandibles, continuously tore and gnawed at the heads of its fallen kin below, making crunching sounds. Under the moonlight, the disaster beast's entirely crimson body glowed with an especially eerie and dazzling light. Blood mantis. Lu Gu felt his legs give out, his face filled with terror. Disaster beast. Blood mantis. Level 9, 10. Health 500. Attributes: Strength 32, Agility 34, Constitution 32, Spirit 22. Talent: E-Class Digestion Recovery Effect. Restores health when digesting food. Skill: Bite LV.1. Especially upon seeing the disaster beast in front of him successfully level up, advancing from an F-Class to an E-Class disaster beast. Lu Gu turned and ran without hesitation. The other three froze for a moment before reacting and following closely behind him. The blood mantis's antennae twitched, its eyes locking onto the four figures, but it made no other movements, continuing to eat its kin below. Lu Gu and his group fled without stopping, quickly returning to L-Town. Seeing that there was no movement behind them, the stone hanging in Lu Gu's heart finally dropped. The three people beside him were already panting from exhaustion. With his current team composition, encountering an E-Class disaster beast would be a massacre. Careful. However, just as all four of them breathed a sigh of relief, a clear voice, like a silver bell, suddenly came from behind. What a beautiful voice! The four couldn't help but be stunned. However, at this moment, a huge shadow enveloped everyone. Boom! Before they could react, a huge crash resounded. The blood mantis from before descended from the sky, landing behind them. Its exceptionally strong forelimbs, covered in barbs, swung out at a speed imperceptible to the naked eye. One of the new adventurers was instantly impaled. The blood mantis grabbed him with its two forelimbs, opened its mouth, and bit down. The air was immediately filled with a pungent smell of blood. At this moment, Lu Gu and the other two were terrified, slumping to the ground. Soon, the blood mantis set its sights on the next person, raising its forelimb to strike. Just then, a sword light flashed, and one of the blood mantis's forelimbs snapped off with a clang, the wound incredibly smooth. The blood mantis's eyes swiveled. Only then did it realize that a black-robed person had appeared in front of the three, a long sword in his hand gleaming with cold light. You there? You defend? I'll attack. The black-robed person stared at the blood mantis, speaking without turning his head. However, after being reminded by this person, Lu Gu and his group finally came to their senses, letting out terrified screams and scrambling away, leaving only the black-robed person behind. Chapter 8. Su Yenran. Seeing no response for a long time, the black-robed figure turned around and was stunned. Lu Gu and the others were nowhere to be seen. Isn't this person an E-Class adventurer? How could he be scared off by an E-Class disaster beast? Seeing the black-robed figure distracted, the blood mantis's eyes gleamed fiercely, and its remaining intact forelimb suddenly swung out. Facing the sudden attack, the black-robed figure also snapped back to reality immediately, turning sideways and quickly raising a sword to parry. However, the black-robed figure was still a step too slow. The blood mantis's forelimb still tore open the hood on her head. In an instant, 3,000 strands of black hair cascaded down, and under the moonlight, a stunningly beautiful face appeared. Her skin was as white as snow. Her melon-seed face had exquisite and distinct lines. Her cool and elegant contours were naturally formed. Beneath her high-nose bridge, her pink lips were slightly pursed, her willow-like brows were slightly furrowed, and a pair of apricot were clear, deep, and fixed intently on the blood mantis in front of her. It was a pity that such beauty had no one to appreciate it. Seeing that its attack failed, the blood mantis slowly retreated a few steps. Although the woman in front of it seemed less powerful, the previous attack made it instinctively feel a threat of death. The blood mantis's antennae twitched, and then a flash of sword light streaked past. It leaped backward, dodging another attack from the woman. Using that leap, the blood mantis spread its wings on its back and quickly ascended, stirring up a cloud of dust. "Don't run." Su Yenran frowned, instantly understanding what the blood mantis intended, then quickly stepped forward and unleashed another sword slash. However, the blood mantis flew nimbly, dodging the attack again, then flew without hesitation in the direction Lu Gu and the others had left. Su Yenran gritted her silver teeth, sheathed her sword, and followed closely behind. She didn't care about Lu Gu and the others' lives or deaths, but she had a mission and might still need to team up with Lu Gu and the others. Damn it! How did a disaster beast from Qingqing appear in the outer L-Town disaster area? On the other side, Lu Gu was running frantically without stopping. As an E-class adventurer, his constitution was naturally far superior to the newcomers, and the two newcomers had already been left 1,000 meters behind him. "Captain, wait for me. Don't leave me behind. Save me. I don't want to die." Seeing Lu Gu getting farther and farther away, the two newcomers couldn't help but plead loudly. However, Lu Gu pretended not to hear and continued to flee for his life. "Damn it! Lu Gu, I've got your number. I'll report you to the guild when I get back. You bastard. Just you wait." Seeing Lu Gu ignore their pleas, the two newcomers spoke viciously. "Report? Go ahead and report if you want. As long as I can survive, I'm not afraid of your reports." Facing their threats, Lu Gu remained unmoved. No job was more important than his life. "Ah!" The curses behind him suddenly stopped abruptly, followed by a scream. Lu Gu looked back and was immediately scared out of his wits. The blood mantis had appeared behind him at some point, killing another newcomer. The other newcomer let out a scream, no longer bothering to curse, and continued to flee, scrambling and tumbling. "Useless. Useless. I thought that person was strong, but he couldn't even buy me this much time." Lu Gu couldn't help but curse. Earlier, when he saw the black-robed figure could harm the blood mantis, he thought he had encountered a hidden expert. He didn't expect her to die so quickly. After easily killing the newcomer, the blood mantis leisurely ate. This chase game seemed to bring it immense physical and mental pleasure. Before long, it took flight again, and the other newcomer also fell. Useless. All useless. Lu Gu couldn't stop cursing, and the intense sense of crisis made his eyes bloodshot. "No. If this continues, I'll die. I need to find a way. There must be a way. I will survive. I can do it." Lu Gu muttered incoherently, and then his perception, which was far superior to the newcomers, suddenly heard the sound of combat coming from the distance to his right. At this moment, a thought appeared in Lu Gu's mind, and his face became ferocious. "I am an E-class adventurer. My value to the guild is far more important than 5 F-class newcomers. Yes, that's right. I'm more important." Thinking this, Lu Gu decisively ran to the right. Behind him was the relentlessly pursuing blood mantis. As the blood mantis got closer, Lu Gu seemed to smell blood, and his steps quickened considerably. Before long, Lu Gu passed through a dilapidated alley and finally, before the blood mantis caught up, arrived at the place where the sounds of combat had previously come from. However, the imagined 5-person team did not appear. Only a single figure stood on the road ahead, with several mad rabbit corpses at his feet. Qingqing had just collected the items dropped by the mad rabbits when he suddenly heard someone approaching and immediately became vigilant. He saw a young man dart out of the alley, his eyes bloodshot, his face incredibly ferocious, and his appearance somewhat familiar. "Who are you?" "It's you." Qingqing hadn't finished speaking when the young man recognized him. Upon hearing this, Qingqing realized that this person was Lu Gu, who had previously gotten angry when his sales pitch failed. Seeing this, Qingqing's eyes turned cold. He hadn't forgotten what Lu Gu had done to him before. Lu Gu, however, didn't respond but simply bypassed him and plunged into the alley behind him. His inexplicable behavior left Qingqing puzzled. Then, in the next moment, he understood. A disaster beast nearly 3 meters long slowly crawled out of the shadows in the alley, its 2 long antennae constantly swaying. One of its forelimbs had a smooth incision. An F-class disaster beast. A blood mantis? Isn't this a disaster beast from Qingcheng? How did it appear here? No, an E-class blood mantis? Chang Xing couldn't help but mutter, but he quickly saw the information feedback from the system and his face darkened. Now he understood why Lu Gu had run without looking back. He was diverting the trouble to himself. Thinking this, a rare surge of killing intent appeared in Chang Xing's heart, repeatedly tricking people, and this time clearly trying to take his life. Did he really think Chang Xing was a living bodhisattva? You'd better not let me meet you again, Chang Xing said coldly, but his hands didn't stop moving. He gripped the Tang Dao in his hand tightly, his gaze fixed on the blood mantis in front of him. Upon seeing Chang Xing, the blood mantis did not continue to pursue Lu Gu, but stared intently at him. In its perception, this delicious prey in front of it was a little weaker than the previous one. Since food was delivered to its doorstep, it naturally wouldn't let it go. Open panel. Name, Chang Xing. Level 9, 535/1000. Health 300. Attributes: Strength 22, Agility 30, Constitution 15, Spirit 15, Free Attribute points 0. Talents: SSS Class Increased Drop Rate, F Class Sprint. Skills: B Class 4 Direction/LV1, E Class Parry LV1. Chang Xing glanced at his panel, then looked at the blood mantis, his heart filled with fighting spirit. He could be said to have undergone a complete transformation. After a day of hunting, his level had increased rapidly, and his SSS Class 100% drop rate allowed Chang Xing to already equip a set of E-Class armor. As for materials, his backpack was already overflowing. He wasn't without a fighting chance against an E-Class blood mantis. Come, let's have a practice session. Chang Xing raised his hand and provoked the blood mantis. Seeing this, the blood mantis seemed enraged and charged forward at an extremely fast speed. Chapter 9. Even beauties can't share experience outside Qing City. L-Town disaster area. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. An E-Class blood mantis, nearly 3 meters long, stood in a standoff with a young man. Neither side made a move immediately. Unlike its previous prey, it felt no fear from the prey before it. Chang Xing, however, was actually unsure, because whether it was a human or a disaster beast, every 10-level mark was a threshold. From level 9 to level 10, crossing it would be a qualitative change. Hiss! Not long after, the blood mantis was the first to lose patience, suddenly rushing towards Chang Xing with extreme speed, reaching him in the blink of an eye. Chang Xing's eyes narrowed, and he dodged to the side, his movement speed not much slower than the E-Class blood mantis. After all, speed was also Chang Xing's strong suit. With one attack missing, the blood mantis's remaining forelimbs, like a scythe of death, slashed towards Chang Xing's waist. Chang Xing reacted quickly, jumping up abruptly, causing the forelimbs to strike a wall behind him. The concrete-poured wall was torn open like paper, creating a several-meter-long gash, then collapsed with a crash under the strain. Seeing that the blood mantis's casual strike had such power, Chang Xing couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. If he had taken that hit, he would have been scattered everywhere. Amidst his thoughts, his feet landed, and Chang Xing was already in motion. A cold gleam flashed, Chang Xing's figure vanished, and his tang blade slashed at the blood mantis from a tricky angle. Screech, screech, screech. The slash landed on the blood mantis's body, emitting a sound like metal colliding, with sparks faintly flying. The attacked blood mantis hissed, swinging its forelimbs at Chang Xing. Chang Xing lightly tapped his toes, his body retreating rapidly, letting the blood mantis's attack land on the road, kicking up fragments. So tough. Chang Xing shook his hand. That previous strike had made his tiger's mouth ache. The consecutive missed attacks made the blood mantis agitated, and it charged again, its speed increasing by a few points. Chang Xing continued to dodge, seizing the gaps in its attacks, and delivered another slash. However, the effect of the slash was still very poor. Seeing that Chang Xing couldn't break its carapace, the blood mantis ignored his attacks and continued to swing its forelimbs. For a time, they were in a stalemate where one couldn't hit and the other couldn't be defended against. As the intense battle raged, the streets on both sides were completely reduced to ruins. I need to change my approach. After multiple probes, Cheng Xing pondered for a moment and made a decision. At this moment, the blood mantis lunged again. Cheng Xing's body shifted, and after dodging the attack, he closed in and delivered another slash. However, after the slash, Cheng Xing loosened his grip, reversed his hold on the hilt. His left hand climbed up, both hands exerting force, and a fluid stab landed on the blood mantis's side. Splat! The blood mantis's proud carapace didn't work this time. The tang blade plunged into the blood mantis's body, and foul-smelling green blood dripped along the blade. I found your weakness. With a successful strike, Cheng Xing pulled out his blade and retreated, while the blood mantis launched a frantic attack. However, in Cheng Xing's eyes, now that he had discerned its weakness, its attacks only gave him more opportunities to strike. As successive stabs landed on the blood mantis, its body was already covered with wounds of various sizes, and large amounts of foul-smelling green blood flowed from them. The blood mantis's health was already less than 1/5. Seeing that the time was ripe, the next stab aimed directly at the center of the blood mantis's eyes. Crack! Just as he was about to finish off the blood mantis with one blow, Cheng Xing heard a whooshing sound, followed by a sound like a long whip cracking. Cheng Xing felt a searing pain in his waist, and then he was sent flying. He endured the pain, flipped over, and used his blade to steady himself. He saw that the blood mantis's antennae, which had previously only twitched sluggishly, were now wiggling flexibly like earthworms. So that thing wasn't just for show? Stereotypes kill people. Huh. Such high damage. Cheng Xing quickly scanned his stats panel and found that one hit had knocked off over 100 health points. His small frame couldn't withstand many such hits. Thinking of this, Cheng Xing no longer continued to probe. After taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. For direction slash. The next moment, Cheng Xing's figure vanished, leaving only spiderweb-like cracks where he had stood. The blood mantis's two antennae instantly tensed, then it decisively spread its wings and took to the air to avoid damage. However, its movements were still a bit too slow. As 4 streaks of blade light flashed, the blood mantis's 4 hind limbs, along with its posterior abdomen, were neatly severed. Hiss! The blood mantis let out a miserable shriek, its flight becoming wobbly, but the antennae on its head continued to attack at a very strange angle. The antennae's attack speed was even faster, and even the current Cheng Xing found it hard to keep up. So he had to retreat to avoid its edge and wait for an opportunity. After suffering heavy injuries, the blood mantis no longer had any desire to continue fighting. It only wanted to escape the area. But Cheng Xing wouldn't let this big fat sheep get away. Who knew what good things an E-class blood mantis would drop after being killed? Fortunately, the heavily injured blood mantis didn't fly very high or fast, and Cheng Xing could easily keep up. Just as Cheng Xing thought victory was assured, an unexpected event occurred. A dark shadow darted out from some nearby debris. Upon closer inspection, it was a level 4 mad rabbit. As soon as the mad rabbit appeared, the blood mantis's antennae on its head shot out, then pierced it, and after coiling around the corpse, it opened its bloody mouth and began to tear at it. Immediately, the blood mantis's health recovered at a visible rate, and its injured body quickly healed. Damn it! Seeing this situation, Cheng Xing inwardly cursed, stepped forward, and delivered another 4 direction slash. However, the recovered blood mantis immediately spread its wings and flew, moving away from Cheng Xing's attack range. The blood mantis, now airborne, stared fixedly at Cheng Xing. It memorized the man's appearance, planning to eat the previous prey and then deal with him. It had a premonition that once it ate that prey, it would be able to level up again. Then it prepared to fly in the direction Lu Gu had fled. Seeing this scene, Cheng Xing felt like his cooked duck was about to fly away. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of a long sword being unsheathed rang out, and a figure rushed out from the roof of a 3-story building not far away, accompanied by a sharp sword light. The sword light precisely sliced across the blood mantis's back, leaving a huge gash, and then the blood mantis's wings were cleanly severed at the root. The wingless blood mantis crashed heavily to the ground. Let's see where you can run now. The figure, who had landed on a broken wall on the other side of the street after that one strike, said breathlessly. Chang Xing, who had witnessed the splendor of that sword strike, couldn't help but look up at the figure. There's someone else? Su Yanran also sensed something and looked down. Their eyes met, and surprise appeared in both their eyes simultaneously. A little handsome. A little pretty. After the surprise, Su Yanran, realizing the blood mantis still wanted to escape, tried to extend an invitation. Team up. That's great, but I refuse. Chang Xing refused without even thinking. Are you kidding? He had been soloing for so long. How could he team up? Even a beautiful woman couldn't share his experience. Chapter 10. What kind of secret is this? All right, I'll go first. Su Yanran subconsciously replied, ready to continue her attack. But when she heard Chang Xing's answer, her apricot-shaped eyes widened in confusion. You mean you don't need my help? Su Yanran asked in disbelief. She hadn't expected to be backstabbed and rejected in such a short span of a single day. If she had a mirror on her right now, she would definitely take it out to look at herself. Su Yanran was truly losing her confidence. Facing Su Yanran's repeated questions, Chang Xing ignored her, instead staring intently at the blood mantis, afraid it would escape. Seeing herself lose to a disaster beast, Su Yanran was furious, and immediately put away her long sword. She wanted to see how this person would face an E-rank disaster beast. This time, Chang Xing didn't hold back. He raised his hand and unleashed 4 direction slash. 4 streaks of blade light flashed, and 4 gruesome wounds instantly appeared on the blood mantis's body. Hiss! The blood mantis wailed, its recently recovered health instantly cut by more than half, and the antennae on its head shot out wildly. Parry! This time, Chang Xing didn't dodge or evade, silently chanting in his mind. Chang Xing's tang blade moved at an almost imperceptible angle, parrying the attacks of the 2 antennae. This wasn't the end. He moved his body, dodged the forelimb's attack, reversed his grip on the tang blade, and stabbed directly into the blood mantis's forelimb joint. Chang Xing's eyes narrowed. He exerted force with his left hand, pressing down, and the blood mantis's forelimb was severed with a snap. One of the blood mantis's major weapons was thus disarmed. It's him. The battle unfolding almost instantaneously before her eyes was fully observed by Su Yanran. She couldn't help but let out a gasp of surprise. Previously, hidden within Lu Gu's team, she had seen a large number of mad rabbit corpses along the way. Without exception, those mad rabbits had all been killed by the same person using the same skill. She hadn't expected to encounter him here. At this moment, Su Yanran put away her disdain, and also noticed the combat traces extending all the way from behind. Then, Chang Xing's initial battle with the blood mantis began to be reconstructed little by little, finally appearing as an image before Su Yanran's eyes. This was her S-rank talent, Insight. Such powerful combat talent, adapting to the blood mantis's attack rhythm in a short time. With this level of combat power, his talent should be no lower than S-rank. Is this a genius from some family out for training? After seeing the entire sequence of events, Su Yanran couldn't help but murmur to herself. But she quickly ruled out the possibility of Chang Xing being from a prominent family. No other reason than Chang Xing was too poor. He was wearing an E-rank set of armor, and his weapon was even more shabby, just an F-rank unattributed weapon. With his S-rank or higher talent, in which family would he not be treated like a family heirloom? Matters like early-stage leveling would be arranged in their own private leveling zones. His age suggested he had just awakened, and his equipment looked more like common items found in the L-Town disaster area. Combining this information, Su Yanran arrived at an impossible conclusion. He awakened with S-rank or higher drop rate increase. Under the effect of her insight talent, Chang Xing's information was gradually analyzed and peeled back, like silk from a cocoon, and Su Yanran saw everything about him, especially when she stared at a certain part. His legs were quite long. Su Yanran subtly wiped away the saliva that felt like sand in her eyes. Thinking of this, she secretly made a decision. The battle below was nearing its end. After taking another 4 direction slash, the blood mantis collapsed weakly. At the same time, somewhere in the L-Town disaster area, A 5-person team was hidden in an abandoned villa. All 5 were fully armed, covered in equipment, and each wore a mask. The moment the blood mantis died, one of them suddenly opened his eyes. A level 10 blood mantis was killed? Killed blood mantis. Experience plus 500. Level up, LV9, LV10. Free attribute points plus 15. I leveled up just like that? Chang Xing himself was startled. It wasn't until he saw the experience gain that he realized how high the experience from E-rank disaster beasts was. He also understood why the gap between level 9 and level 10 was so large. Just one level up granted him the same amount of free attribute points as leveling up 5 times previously. Open panel. Name, Chang Xing. Level, 10, 35/10,000. Health, 400. Attributes, Strength 27, Agility 35, Constitution 20, Spirit 20, Free attribute points 15. Talents, SSS rank drop rate increase, F rank sprint. Skills, B rank 4 direction/LV.1, E rank parry LV.1. However, seeing the experience required for leveling up after level 10, Chang Xing felt that the experience was no longer enough. You leveled up? Su Yenran had approached Chang Xing at some point, her apricot-shaped eyes full of curiosity as she sized him up. And under the gaze of this unfamiliar girl, Chang Xing inexplicably felt as if he had been seen through. What is this? As if sensing Chang Xing's discomfort, Su Yenran very timely changed the subject. She stared intently at a light green orb that the blood mantis had dropped, and then a system feedback appeared. Huh? This is a talent. Talents can be dropped too? Is this also the effect of drop rate increase? Su Yenran was startled by the information from the orb in front of her. She had never heard of talents being dropped. However, what responded to her were only 4 dazzling streaks of blade light. Clang! With the sound of blades clashing, Chang Xing's always effective 4-direction slash was now completely blocked by the person in front of him, even causing a stinging pain in his tiger's mouth from the recoil. Her attributes are even higher than mine? Chang Xing frowned slightly, his eyes filled with killing intent. He then quickly allocated his free attribute points and charged at Su Yenran again, every move aiming for a fatal blow. However, even after allocating the points, every one of Chang Xing's moves seemed to be predicted in advance. Su Yenran always dodged them with minimal movement, and occasionally a slight lift of her sword was enough to block his attacks. In a matter of seconds, the two had exchanged dozens of blows, and the blade of his Tang blade was full of nicks. High-grade weapon? Chang Xing's expression was solemn. He hadn't expected to be unable to do anything to her, and her weapon seemed to be no ordinary one. Seeing this, Su Yenran finally breathed a sigh of relief. Evidently, dealing with Chang Xing's offensive was not as easy as it looked. She glanced at the drop talent and realized her actions had been too abrupt, and she was very aware of how significant an impact this matter could have. I apologize for my abruptness. Please calm down. I won't reveal what I just saw. Su Yenran voluntarily put away her weapon and then began to explain. But the killing intent in Chang Xing's eyes did not diminish in the slightest. In this world, blindly trusting others was no different from suicide. He carefully scrutinized the other party, pondering how to eliminate her. What do you want me to do to trust you? Su Yenran retreated repeatedly. She knew that the person in front of her wouldn't believe her just for that sentence, so she spoke with great sincerity. Upon hearing this, Chang Xing's eyes narrowed slightly. He could feel the other party's sincerity. In their recent exchange, the other party had been entirely on the defensive, and it seemed he couldn't keep her here now. Thinking of this, the killing intent in his eyes dissipated somewhat. Who are you? Why do you know my talent? What are you doing here? Chang Xing pondered for a moment and ultimately gave her a chance. My name is Su Yenran, a junior scout, affiliated with the Awakener Management Bureau of Huanan Base. Awakener Management Bureau? Hearing this unfamiliar term, Chang Xing couldn't help but frown slightly. I guessed your talent. My talent is S-rank insight, which allows me to perceive subtle information and deduce processes. At this point, Su Yenran displayed her panel information to Chang Xing without hesitation. Name, Su Yenran. Level 9, 935/1000. Health 400. Attributes: Strength 28, Agility 33, Constitution 20, Spirit 35, Free Attribute points 0. Talent: S-Rank Insight. Talent Effect: Perceives information and deduces processes. Skill: B-Rank Cold Light Sword Encirclement, LV.1. When Cheng Xing saw Su Yenran's luxurious panel, he also realized that this girl in front of him was not simple. Her level 9 attributes were higher than his level 10, meaning her equipment far surpassed his own. Combined with her B-Rank skill, all this information indicated her powerful background. Most importantly, he couldn't kill her. Friends who frequently transmigrate know that people with powerful backgrounds like her definitely have hidden life-saving trump cards. I'm here because of a mission from the Bureau to investigate the recent high death rate of new awakeners in L-Town. Su Yenran answered Cheng Xing's questions like a seasoned professional, full of sincerity. But fearing it wasn't enough, she gritted her silver teeth and continued. Since I discovered your secret, I'll tell you my secret. Su Yenran looked around to ensure no one was present, then moved closer and whispered her secret to Cheng Xing. After speaking, Su Yenran's cool, pretty face was flushed crimson, leaving only a bewildered Cheng Xing. What kind of secret is that? Chapter 11. There is no way. She gave too much. What do you mean by a secret? Su Yenran's pretty face darkened and she shouted in dissatisfaction. I'm still a virgin. Do you know how much of an impact this secret would have on me? Ah, yes. Cheng Xing had a strange look on his face, but he nodded perfunctorily, his guard having disappeared a lot. Then he picked up the talent on the ground. Talent: Digestion Recovery. Quality: E grade. Talent Effect: Restore HP while digesting food. It's indeed the blood mantis's talent. It seems that the drop of talent is not as random as skills. Cheng Xing thought secretly in his heart, and then put it into use immediately. This scene fell into Su Yenran's eyes, and immediately turned her into a curious baby. The words, "I'm very curious," were almost written on her face. But she didn't dare to ask further, for fear that the trust she had worked so hard to gain would be lost. Cheng Xing seemed not to see her gaze and continued to pick up another item that the blood mantis exploded. It was a knife, which looked almost the same as the embroidered spring knife. Blood mantis Fong. Quality: E grade. Effect: Damage plus 20%. Seeing the equipment information, Cheng Xing grinned. Now he finally had a complete set of E-level equipment. Perhaps unable to bear the burning gaze from the side, Cheng Xing asked helplessly, "What else do you want?" If he hadn't seen Su Yenran's panel, he might have continued to be ruthless. After all, only the dead can keep secrets. But practice has proved that Cheng Xing is currently unable to do anything to her, as her talent is too strong in battle. "I want you." Su Yenran's words were shocking, frightening Cheng Xing so much that he took several steps back. How could this person manage to say such vicious words while appearing to be an icy beauty? Don't get me wrong. I just want to invite you to join our investigation team. Su Yenran quickly realized that she had said the wrong thing. Her face turned slightly red and she waved her hands repeatedly to explain. "No, I don't need it." Cheng Xing refused without even thinking. First of all, he had never heard of the so-called Awakener administration. Secondly, joining a force would bring him certain rewards but also constraints. If he was just an F-level talent, he might be very happy to join. Don't be so quick to refuse. If you join us, you won't need to hide your talent anymore. Su Yenran narrowed her almond-shaped eyes slightly, opened her cherry lips slightly, and spoke directly to the point without any beating around the bush. Even Cheng Xing was moved, as this was his biggest trouble at the moment. He could feel that Su Yenran was not lying, so it seemed that the so-called Awakener Management Bureau behind her was quite powerful. It's a pity that Cheng Xing is used to a free and unrestrained life, so he naturally doesn't want to join any forces at the moment. This is the confidence given to him by his 2 lives as a human being and his SSS-level talent. But when you are at your wit's end, you can consider it. This is my address. If you change your mind, you can contact me. As Cheng Xing was thinking this, Su Yenran on the side handed over a note with an address on it at the right time, simply ending the topic. Apparently, S-level talent insight is not as simple as imagined. Chang Xing was stunned by the decisive ending of the topic, and he took the note blankly. Su Yenran was obviously very pleased with his reaction. A bright smile suddenly bloomed on her pretty face. At that moment, the moonlight in the sky seemed dim. Her well-balanced sense of distance made even Chang Xing, a veteran, feel very comfortable. Knowing that the woman in front of him knew his most important secret, he simply couldn't do anything to her. He was being held in the grasp of others. It's not easy to get to know each other. Why don't you give me a hand? Seeing that the crisis was completely resolved, Su Yenran took the opportunity to make a suggestion. She was making no progress on her current mission, but the information collected along the way showed that all this was not as simple as imagined. With Chang Xing's help, things would be a little safer. No, I'm busy. Chang Xing refused without a second thought. Instead of meddling in other people's business, he might as well kill a few more disaster beasts. I'll give you a D-rank piece of equipment, regardless of whether the mission fails or not. After hearing this, Chang Xing, who was about to leave, paused. A D-level equipment is worth 500,000 yuan. Thinking of this, he turned around sleekly the next moment and said without blushing or beating his heart, "Actually, I forgot to tell you that I have another advantage, which is that I am always willing to help others." There's no way. She gave too much. Upon hearing this, Su Yenran rolled her eyes. Men's words are deceitful. After reaching a cooperation, Su Yenran didn't waste any more words and walked to the blood mantis's corpse and bent down to check it out. From the moment she discovered the blood mantis, she sensed something was wrong. Even though she had the gift of insight, she didn't get any useful information from the corpse. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, several fierce fighting sounds rang out at the same time as if by coincidence. The two then quickly found an abandoned high-rise building and climbed to the roof to look out. The sounds of fighting were endless, and they instantly locked onto 5 places. Here I come. Chang Xing and the other man looked at each other and said with the same certainty in their hearts. The sounds of the battle kept moving, as if something was chasing them. There. That's right. After thinking for a while, Chang Xing raised his hand and pointed to a place in L-Town. If the 5 teams continued to move forward, they would eventually meet at that place. It seems someone has deliberately gathered all the adventurers in L-Town together. Su Yenran frowned slightly and fell into thought. L-Town is a novice upgrade point, and the teams are usually mixed. There are self-improvement upgrade teams composed of all new adventurers, and there are also 1 to 4 upgrade teams like Lugu. What could be the reason that forces them to fight and retreat at the same time? Could it be that the Qingcheng disaster area has expanded? Su Yenran thought about it and only came up with one reason. You won't get the truth by just thinking about it. Just go and see for yourself and you'll know. Chang Xing leaned against the edge of the rooftop, glanced at Su Yenran who was still deep in thought, and said calmly, "What you hear is not as good as what you see." At the same time, on the other side of L-Town, a team was rushing through the ruins, but unlike a regular team, this team consisted of 6 people. Looking closely, Lu Gu was also among them. Behind them, a blood mantis followed closely. Damn, why are these things everywhere? Lu Gu was no longer as panicked as before. He even took the initiative to block the blood mantis when it attacked. The reason was simple, because the blood mantis chasing after them was only a level 9 F-class disaster beast. The team he encountered was around level 7 overall, and with him as an E-level adventurer, it was enough for them to escape safely. The blood mantis seized the opportunity and attacked one of the team members. Careful! Lu Gu was the first to speak up and remind him, and at the same time he stepped forward with a shield to block the fatal blow for the man. "Thank you, Brother Lu," the man who was rescued said excitedly. Lu Gu waved his hand, took advantage of the situation to continue retreating, and silently gained the favor of this team. Look, there's someone in front. At this moment, a sharp-eyed team member suddenly discovered 2 figures in front of him. Great! There's strength in numbers. What's the strength of the other party? The team leader was overjoyed. In this situation, The more people there were, the safer they would be. One of them seems to be an F-rank adventurer, and I can't see her nameplate on the other one. F-rank? I hope he's not a newbie. Let's go. Hurry. Immediately, a group of people approached the two figures. As the distance got closer, the two people's appearance appeared in front of everyone. So beautiful. When the 5 members of the team saw the appearance of one of them, they were immediately deeply attracted. Lu Gu was the same, but when he saw the other person's appearance clearly, his expression suddenly changed. Stop now. Don't go over there. It was that guy who almost wiped out my team. Chapter 12. Meet again. Upon hearing this, the faces of the 5 team members suddenly changed and their forward steps stopped. When they first met Lu Gu, he told them that there was a newcomer with F-level talent in his team who was running around and attracted a level 10 blood mantis. I wanted to step forward and buy time for the other team members to escape, but unexpectedly, the newcomer abandoned everyone and ran for his life. He had no choice but to escape with them. Along the way, the newcomer deliberately pushed his teammates out and sacrificed others just to buy time for himself. Finally, God opened his eyes and the blood mantis chased the man. Lu Gu escaped by chance and met their team. The team leader righteously told all of Changxing's evil deeds. Beautiful lady, please stay away from this treacherous murderer who murders his compatriots. Let me kill him and enforce justice. After saying that, the team leader spoke to Su Yenran very seriously. He didn't want to give up this opportunity to show off in front of the beautiful woman. Hearing this, Su Yenran looked strange. Betrayal? Harming compatriots? If she hadn't witnessed Changxing's amazing fighting power and seen Lu Gu running away without looking back when he saw the E-level disaster beast, she almost believed it. Changxing, who was standing aside, had a gloomy expression on his face, his eyes fixed on Lu Gu, who was at the back of the team. It's easy to guess where these rumors come from. While the two sides were confronting each other, the blood mantises behind them also caught up. Seeing that he was being disturbed, Changxing moved and disappeared from everyone's sight. When he appeared again, he was already in front of the blood mantis. The blood mantis didn't think much about this human who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, but just raised its front limbs to attack out of habit. 4-way slash. However, the next moment, a cold voice sounded, and the knife light flashed across the night sky. 4 bloodlines appeared on the surface of the blood mantis, and then blood splattered. The 6 people not far away were suddenly splashed with smelly green blood. Then, in front of their astonished eyes, the blood mantis's health of more than 300 instantly returned to 0, and 2 valuable materials exploded. A level 9 blood mantis was killed in seconds. He swung the blood mantis fang in his hand, shaking off the blood on the blade, and at the same time, a slight sound of breaking through the air was heard. You spoke too softly just now. I didn't hear you clearly. Do you want to say it again? Changxing stepped forward, his weapon still in hand, and stopped in front of the team, speaking lightly. There was no emotion in the words, just like an everyday chat. But almost everyone shuddered, especially Lu Gu. However, Lu Gu's face was full of disbelief at this time. How is that possible? You just registered as an adventurer today, and your talent is only F rank. Are you an S-level talent? You lied about your talent level. Why? Lu Gu widened his eyes. He really couldn't imagine why someone would lie about their talent level. You don't need to know so much. Changxing didn't even look at him. He just raised his hand and slashed with a knife. Lu Gu was shocked and quickly raised his shield to block. Immediately, a force heavier than the blood mantis's attack came from the shield. This attack forced Lu Gu to retreat repeatedly, and his hands holding the shield were almost weak. Big brother, is there any misunderstanding here? Seeing this, the team leader who had a good impression of Lu Gu couldn't help but ask, "Oh, do you have any objection to my actions?" Changxing glanced at the man and spoke calmly. The man fell silent instantly. He couldn't afford to offend this old man. The blood mantis that had been chasing them all the way couldn't last a single round against him. The captain calmed down and recalled the story Lu Gu had told him before, and found many inconsistencies. Changxing immediately continued to move forward and strike with his sword. Lu Gu could only passively defend himself, and the shield in his hand began to crack under repeated attacks. Lu Gu kept begging for mercy, but Cheng Xing showed no intention of giving up. Cheng Xing swung the long knife in his hand and cut a gash on Lu Gu's arm. The scarlet blood instantly soaked Lu Gu's clothes. The severe pain made Lu Gu let out a wail, but soon the wail stopped abruptly, only because the deadly knife was already on his neck. "Come on, tell them what you have done." At this moment, Lu Gu didn't care about his reputation. He immediately knelt on the ground and told Cheng Xing everything he had done to him in the adventurer camp and what happened after he encountered the blood mantis. "It's me who deserves to die. Please be magnanimous and don't kill me. I don't want to die." After saying that, Lu Gu kept begging for mercy, and a foul smell came from under his body. This knife scared the man to death. Seeing this, Cheng Xing immediately lost the desire to kill, put away the knife and returned to Su Yanran. The 5-member team that learned the truth had a grim look on their faces. They never expected that they had been deceived by this scumbag. "Bah! Scumbag, you're throwing mud at others just because you're afraid of people finding out about your own actions. I've never seen such a disgusting person. Just wait. We will definitely report this to the guild." "Why won't you let me kill him?" Cheng Xing looked at Lu Gu, who looked ashen in the distance, and asked lightly. Although she has spent a relatively short time with Su Yanran, she is definitely not a saintly person. If Su Yanran hadn't reminded him in advance, he would have killed the man with a knife. "I can't tell you. You'll find out later. Just remember, don't kill an awakened person unless you absolutely have to." Su Yanran shrugged without further explanation, but spoke to him very seriously. Hearing this, Cheng Xing couldn't help but fall into deep thought. However, before Cheng Xing could figure out what was going on, there was a noise coming from the other side. Everyone turned their heads and saw a team of 5 people fleeing in panic at the end of the ruined road. They spotted Cheng Xing and the others at a glance and immediately quickened their pace. And behind them, there was actually a blood mantis chasing after them. But this time the situation was slightly different. When the team was only 100 meters away from Cheng Xing and his team, the blood mantis immediately stopped moving. It seemed as if he realized that he had no chance of winning against so many people. At this time, Cheng Xing and his group were in front of an abandoned shopping mall in L-Town, and the blood mantis was wandering at the edge of the square outside the mall. Seeing that the blood mantises did not rush over, the newly appeared team couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and hurried forward to greet others. "Hello, we are the F-Class Hound Squad. We are the F-Class Terrorclaw Squad." After the 2 teams introduced themselves, they immediately became familiar with each other. They were both permanent teams with fixed members and could register a team name with the Adventurers Guild. The strength of their 2 teams is similar, with the Hound team being slightly stronger. And both teams have reached level 8 overall. When they saw Lu Gu being excluded, they asked in a low voice. The captain of the Terrorclaw team immediately explained the whole story to them in a low voice. After listening, they couldn't help but spit on him. For a fixed team like theirs, abandonment is a taboo, and they will never accept such a person. After all, they don't want to get into trouble one day and be abandoned the moment they turn around. Afterwards, they set their sights on Cheng Xing and the other person. When the members of the Hound Squad saw Su Yanran, they could hardly walk, but because of her cold appearance, no one dared to come forward and talk to her. Soon, another team hurried over. Chapter 13 Qingqing Expansion. Abandoned shopping mall in the disaster area of L-Town. With the arrival of another team, the number of blood mantises outside the mall reached 3. However, strangely, all 3 blood mantises were wandering outside the square. Neither leave nor attack. The new team was formed temporarily and did not have a team name, but it only had 4 members. Through communication, we learned that they all had sea-level talents and their strength had reached level 9. Chasing them were 2 blood mantises. After all, if there was only one, they would be fully capable of killing it. He is the most powerful person besides Cheng Xing and Su Yanran. After reuniting, the team briefly exchanged some information with the people present and then did not continue talking to them. After all, they are sea-level talent awakeners, and their strength is far stronger than the Hound and Terror Claw teams, so they naturally look down on them. As for Lu Gu, he didn't even look at him. Instead, the captain of this team stared at Su Yenran, not hiding the greed in his eyes at all. The reason why there was no action was because Cheng Xing was there. He heard from Haizhua that this man could kill a level 9 blood mantis instantly with one sword. Although he didn't know whether it was true or not, he didn't want to take the risk. After all, compared to them, the relationship between those two people was obviously unusual. He wasn't sure how strong Cheng Xing was, but he knew clearly the strength of a level 9 blood mantis as he had been chasing him all the way. Anyone who can kill this kind of disaster beast with one strike must be an E-level adventurer of high level. Cheng Xing and the other man took in all the gazes of the crowd. "You're so welcome." Cheng Xing leaned against the outer wall of the mall and sighed with a joking look on his face. "That's, unlike someone else, a straight man." Su Yenran raised her head slightly and said indignantly. As soon as these words were spoken, someone quickly changed the subject. "Do you have any idea about the mission now? From the current perspective, it is very likely that the disaster area in Qingcheng has spread." Su Yenran frowned and said unhappily, "If the disaster area really spreads, things will be much easier to deal with." As the two chatted, a fourth team appeared. This team also consisted of 4 people, and their strength was almost the same as the previous team. However, this team was obviously more arrogant. They didn't even look at the Hound and Claw teams, but started talking to the third team. The number of blood mantises wandering outside has increased to 5. But before the fourth team could fully understand the situation on the scene, the fifth team also hurried over from another direction, but it was more like only one person than a team. "What's going on?" When the man saw everyone in the mall and the blood mantises surrounding outside, his face suddenly turned gloomy. He quickly scanned the crowd and only found one familiar face. That was Lu Gu, who was isolated on the side. Because he, like Lu Gu, came in with a team of 4. Seeing the E-level adventurer's nameplate on this person, everyone's eyes lit up, and the captain of the Terror Claw team volunteered to step forward and talk to him, and tell him the current situation. When Zhao Li heard that Cheng Xing killed a level 9 blood mantis with one sword, he was surprised and turned his head to look. However, when he saw Cheng Xing's face clearly, he showed disdain. That's right, Zhao Li knew Cheng Xing. He was also present when Cheng Xing registered at the adventurer camp. How could a new adventurer with F-level talent grow into a powerful person who could kill level 9 blood mantises in seconds in such a short time? He would never believe it, even if he was beaten to death. There must be something fishy about this. Everyone seems to be here? What should we do now? Cheng Xing looked at everyone and asked in a low voice. Su Yenran looked at the blood mantises that surrounded the mall in almost every direction, and her eyebrows frowned slightly. The number of blood mantises was more than she had believed. What else can we do? If the Qingcheng disaster area is really spreading, we can only kill them all, then return to base and inform the Adventurers Guild. But I don't understand why they don't attack. Is there some other reason? If it is the former, the problem will be much simpler. These blood mantises in front of them may be troublesome for others, but they are not a problem for the 2 of them. As long as there are no E-level blood mantises, they will not pose a threat to the 2 of them. Then how to deal with them? Cheng Xing pursed his lips and gestured to the crowd not far away. These people were a mixed bunch and it would be troublesome to mobilize them. That's easy. Just make up an identity as an investigator from the Adventurers Guild and you'll be fine. Aren't you an investigator for the Awakened Administration? Why don't you use this identity? Cheng Xing regretted what he said the moment he said it. Su Yenran looked at him as if he was a fool. She didn't even have to speak. Okay, just cooperate with me later. Su Yenran said this and walked towards the crowd. Cheng Xing shrugged helplessly. There was nothing he could do. He had to endure it for the sake of the D-level equipment. Everyone, please listen to me. Seeing Su Yenran move, everyone's eyes immediately fell on her. It's not their fault. Su Yenran has the cold face of an ice goddess, and her voice is as clear and moving as a silver bell. Even though she is wearing a black robe that covers her whole body tightly, she still looks quite charming. If she raised her foot, many people would probably want to slide down to their knees and catch it. I'm a disaster area investigator sent by the Adventurers Guild. The guild recently discovered an abnormality in the death rate in the disaster area of L Town. Through investigation, we can basically confirm that the Qingcheng disaster area has expanded. Su Yenran said coldly, without any enthusiasm when chatting with Cheng Xing. What? The Qingcheng disaster area has expanded. No wonder there are so many blood mantises. So what should we do? Upon hearing this, the members of the Hound and Claw teams immediately became uneasy. There were as many as 7 blood mantises around them, and with their strength, they had no way of defeating them. The others looked at each other and fell into thought. The expansion of the disaster area is not uncommon, and usually occurs after the strength of the disaster beast lord in the disaster area increases. This also explains why the blood mantises in the Qingcheng disaster area appeared in L Town. From now on, all you have to do is follow his instructions and defeat all the blood mantises. Seeing that the time was ripe, Su Yenran pushed Cheng Xing out with her backhand. No one objected to this for a while, because as soon as they met up, the Terror Claw squad told them about their killing of the blood mantis. They have no resistance to following the orders of the powerful. We have no objection. With a big boss leading the way, this is a sure thing. Listen to his orders? Why? Just because he's a rookie adventurer with F-rank talent. When everyone agreed, a dissenting voice was heard at an inopportune time. I don't know what method you used to kill that blood mantis, but I saw it plainly this morning. He's just a newly registered F-level talent. Who gives him the right to command us? At this time, Zhao Li slowly walked out of the team and said with disdain on his face, "What? He's just a newbie with an F-level talent. Now that you mention it, it reminds me that I saw him this morning, and he was right. It's ridiculous to let someone like this take charge." As Zhao Li reminded them, more and more people remembered that they had met Cheng Xing in the morning. You're talking nonsense. We all know the strength of Cheng Xing. Seeing everyone's doubts, the members of the Terror Claw team immediately spoke up to refute. They saw with their own eyes that Cheng Xing killed the blood mantis with one knife. What do you mean we all saw it? Did you see it with your own eyes? Zhao Li sneered and asked immediately. The others all shook their heads. They didn't see Cheng Xing take action with their own eyes. They only heard it from Haizhua and the others. You are the only ones who have seen him take action. I now suspect that you have other intentions. I propose that the next battle be commanded by our 2 E-rank adventurers. At the same time, he has to stay and can't follow us. Chapter 14. Each for his own at this moment. Zhao Li's ulterior motive was exposed, and he pointed his finger at Cheng Xing. Only then did everyone realize that Lu Gu, who had been isolated before, had come together with Zhao Li. With his instigation, the situation turned around almost instantly, and most of the people present chose to support Zhao Li. A newly registered F-class talent rookie and 2 experienced E-class adventurers. Such a choice does not require any consideration. Do you have any objection to my arrangement? Before Cheng Xing could make a move, Su Yenran stood up first, looking at them coldly with a frosty face. Ms. Investigator, we are just telling the truth. I believe you were just deceived by it. It's okay. Even without him, I can still bring you back to the Adventurers Guild safely. Zhao Li spread his hands and smiled, pretending to be magnanimous. After saying that, his eyes swept across Su Yenran's cold face, and the possessiveness in his eyes was about to burst out. Zhao Li didn't know how Cheng Xing had managed to trick this icy beauty into his arms, but since he, a newcomer with an F-level talent, could do it, why couldn't he? He is not that loser Lu Gu. He has awakened his C-level talent. If it weren't for making some extra money, he wouldn't be here today. Those who stood on Zhao Li's side also started to make a fuss. Seeing this, Su Yenran narrowed her almond-shaped eyes slightly. With her talent for insight, she could see through the dirty thoughts in these people's hearts. In that case, let's each fight on our own. After saying this, Su Yenran returned to Cheng Xing. Boss Cheng Xing, can we go with you? The Terraclaw team broke away from the main force and walked forward cautiously to ask. After getting Cheng Xing's nod, he stood behind him ecstatically. A bunch of idiots, addicted to acting. Only Lu Gu stared at Cheng Xing with resentment in his eyes. Things have changed. He had suffered so much humiliation just now, and now it was his turn. Since everyone says he can kill blood mantises instantly, why don't we give him a chance to prove it? How about this? Let them take charge of the 3 blood mantises. Isn't this number consistent with his record? Lu Gu, who had been silent for a long time, slowly made a suggestion. Can't you kill blood mantises instantly? I wonder how you can kill those 3 instantly. All the people who knew about what he did were gathered together. As long as they were all dead, no one would know the truth. Hearing this, Zhao Li looked at Lu Gu in surprise. But then he thought that if he could reduce the number of blood mantises by 3, it would be easy for him to deal with the remaining blood mantises with the number of people on his side. If you are fast enough, you can even save the girl. Thinking of this, he also agreed. Lu Gu is right. Since he wants to perform, we should give him a chance. Yes, that's the way it should be. Zhao Li and his people quickly thought of the benefits of reducing the number of blood mantises and immediately agreed. As for the life and death of Cheng Xing and the others, it's none of their business. As soon as these words were spoken, the members of the Terror Claw Squad immediately realized that it was Lu Gu who was taking revenge and couldn't help but burst out in anger. Lu Gu, you are a piece of shit. You are absolutely crazy. WDNMD. What the hell? Shame on you. Faced with the abuse from the crowd, Lu Gu's face was gloomy, but soon he showed an expression of great joy. Okay, I accept this assignment. After comparing himself with the others, Cheng Xing looked calm and finally nodded in agreement. Seeing that Cheng Xing actually accepted Lu Gu's proposal, Zhao Li thought to himself that he was too immersed in the role. In his opinion, 1 blood mantis and 3 blood mantises are not the same concept. It is not difficult to kill an F-level blood mantis in seconds. If he has a D-level attack skill, he can also do it. The skills are divided into single target and group target skills. When you use a single target skill, other blood mantises may attack at the same time. If you can kill them in seconds, they can also kill you in seconds. As for group skills, at the same level, their value is 5 times higher than that of individual skills. How could people who can afford such skills come here to join in the fun? In his eyes, Cheng Xing was a dead man. Thinking of this, Zhao Li smiled coldly, and then ordered his men to start attacking the 4 blood mantises guarding outside. Under the attack of 15 of them, the 4 blood mantises were also suppressed, and their health was decreasing little by little. At the same time, the 3-headed blood mantis on the other side rushed over and wanted to attack it. Seeing this, Zhao Li and others fought and cheered at the same time. What? You're not planning to agree verbally and then stab us in the back? Don't go back on your word. If you don't take action, we will report you when we get back. If Cheng Xing didn't take action, they wouldn't panic. After all, the blood mantises didn't seem to be able to enter the mall, so they could just retreat when the time came. But at that time, someone will suffer. Don't worry, I'm different from you. I always keep my word. Cheng Xing's figure flashed and disappeared from the spot, and when he reappeared, he was already on the path of the 3 blood mantises. Haizhua was also ready to help, but was stopped by Su Yanran. Just don't make trouble. Cheng Xing did not rush to take action, but looked at Zhao Li and his group with a cold smile in his heart. Their plans were about to hit him in the face, so he naturally refused to give in. Although everyone thinks that the current problem in L-Town is the expansion of Qingcheng, his experience in 2 lifetimes tells him that things are definitely not that simple. The various behaviors of the blood mantis told him that there must be other reasons behind this. But the time has not come yet. At this time, the 4 blood mantises on Zhao Li's side had only half of their health left due to their attack. Zhao Li took the time to glance at the other side. Seeing Cheng Xing standing there blankly, with the blood mantis in front of him almost falling on his face, he sneered in his heart. You were so immersed in the play that you're scared now, right? When you die, it will be my turn to show off. As the 3 blood mantises attacked, the powerful attack stirred up a cloud of dust. Seeing this scene, Zhao Li grinned. However, the next second the smoke and dust cleared, and Zhao Li's expression froze instantly. There was no trace of Cheng Xing in front of the blood mantis. 4-way slash. The next moment, a figure emerged from behind the blood mantis and disappeared in a flash. Then Zhao Li saw only 4 knife lights. After the knife lights, smelly blood flowed. The figure fell quietly to the ground, and the green blood splashed everywhere, but did not leave any trace on its body. Instant kill. Chapter 15. Blood mantis swarmed the scene before him, frightened Zhao Li so much that he was dumbfounded. His face was full of disbelief and he stopped attacking. Zhao Li, what are you doing? At this time, the others shouted for him to come back to his senses. He focused his attention on the blood mantis in front of him, but his heart was already in turmoil. Through the continuous attacks of the crowd, the 4 blood mantises were finally defeated. Their health dropped to 0 and they died completely. It's a pity that nothing was revealed. Look, how is that possible? He killed 3 blood mantises by himself. What the Terror Claw team said is actually true. Everyone was stunned when they saw the corpse at Cheng Xing's feet. The words of the Terror Claw squad echoed in their minds, and at the same time, it felt as if an invisible hand slapped them hard in the face. It was burning painful, especially when they saw that all the blood mantises under Cheng Xing's feet had exploded with things. They were stunned. Why do these people risk their lives to come to the disaster area? It's just for money. Cheng Xing ignored their fiery gazes and picked up everything on the ground. Blood mantis tentacles ×2. Quality: E grade. Item description: tough and resilient. It is an excellent choice for crafting a whip. Blood mantis kidney X2. Quality: E grade. Item description: contains indescribable energy. Blood mantis spear. Quality: E grade. Effect: damage increased by 20%. My luck wasn't very good this time. I only got a few materials and an E-level spear. After returning, he gave everything except the kidney to the Terror Claw squad. The Terror Claw team almost couldn't help but rush forward to hug Cheng Xing's thighs and shout, "Godfather." E-level weapons could fetch over 100,000, and E-level materials could fetch 30 or 40,000. They had never made so much money since their debut. Zhao Li and his group, who were not far away, saw this scene with their eyes reddened, wishing they could go forward and switch places with the Terror Claw team. Among them, the captain of the Hound team was extremely regretful. After this battle, they were the weakest. Not only were most of their team members injured, but nothing was dropped, and they only gained a little experience. Compared with the Claw squad, there is a world of difference. At this moment, their attitude towards Cheng Xing changed 180 degrees, and they stepped forward and spoke shamelessly. "Boss Cheng Xing, we actually believed you at the beginning. It's all Zhao Li's fault. He was the one who said bad things about you to me in private. We were all deceived by him. Can you take us with you too?" Seeing everyone going over to curry favor with Cheng Xing, Zhao Li's face twisted with anger, because he also wanted to go. Lu Gu, standing aside, looked ashen. Cheng Xing's strength was beyond his imagination. If he offended such a person, he would be completely finished in the future. Didn't we agree on this? Each of us will fight on our own. Please don't visit random people. Seeing this scene, Cheng Xing smiled coldly and refused ruthlessly. The reason why he gave the things to the Terror Claw team was, firstly, that they would stand on his side first. Secondly, the materials and weapons were things he could not use, and with his 100% explosion rate, he did not lack them at all. Thirdly, he wanted to make these people regret it. He didn't stand on his side when he was being slandered, but now that he has shown his strength, he comes to curry favor with me because he knows there is something to gain. There are not so many good things in the world. After hearing Cheng Xing's rejection, the Hound team could only leave in disappointment. On the contrary, the other team with C-level talent cursed when they saw being rejected. "Why are you pretending? Didn't you just reach level 10 faster than us? We speak to you humbly because we are giving you face. You'd better not be ungrateful. These people are no different from the Hound squad. They have higher levels of talent and are destined to go further on the path of adventurers." In their opinion, Cheng Xing was just a little higher in level and had enough money to afford group skills. Face? Did you eat the face fruit or something? A bunch of people being chased around by 2 blood mantises still have the nerve to jump around in front of me. If it were me, I would just find a crooked tree and cosplay as a sunny doll. You guys are so flippant, like old ladies crawling under the covers. It makes me laugh. As a player whose parents and Zon were still alive in his previous life, Cheng Xing was not tolerant of them at all. After a lot of bad words, the group of people went back speechless and covered in dust. You can't win the fight, so you resort to moral kidnapping? With Cheng Xing's fighting ability, he can make your moral high ground as ridiculous as a bunker. Su Yanran, who was standing aside, watched Cheng Xing's speech, her beautiful almond-shaped eyes filled with stars. So you can have a fight like this? Boss Cheng Xing, something seems to be wrong. At this moment, the sharp-eyed member of the Terror Claw team suddenly seemed to see something and his face changed drastically. Soon, everyone noticed something. A night wind blew by, dark clouds covered the moon, and darkness enveloped the earth. Pairs of scarlet eyes lit up in the darkness, like stars, surrounding the shopping mall where everyone was. Looking at this scene, almost everyone felt their throats dry and couldn't help swallowing. They knew exactly what those eyes meant. As the clouds and fog cleared, the moonlight began to shine again. The scene around them made everyone's face turn pale. Cheng Xing and Su Yanran, who were always relaxed and at ease, now had a rare solemn look on their faces. Looking around, there were dozens of F-level blood mantises, covering the entire shopping mall tightly. In everyone's field of vision, the Disaster Beast information interface that popped up after the system's identification formed a curtain wall. Despair spread silently in everyone's heart. What's going on? Qingcheng is expanding too fast. How could there be such a blood mantis invasion? Su Yanran clasped her arms around her chest and stroked her chin with the other hand. Her brows furrowed as she thought hard. But what was strange was that so many blood mantises were still surrounding the mall and did not launch an attack, as if they were not trying to kill people but just to trap them. However, an accident soon occurred. 5 blood mantises slowly stepped into the shopping mall and rushed towards Zhao Li and his group. At the same time, on the other side, 4 blood mantises came out and rushed towards Cheng Xing and his team. Zhao Li and his men had no choice but to bite the bullet and attack again. The 5 blood mantises were still not a problem for them, but it was far less easy than before. After more than 10 minutes of fierce fighting, the 5 blood mantises finally died at their feet, but their bodies were covered with green blood, which was a far cry from the relaxed Cheng Xing on the other side. This time they were luckier, as the 5 blood mantises still dropped a piece of material, but before they had time to distribute them, 5 blood mantises slowly walked into the mall. This is not Disaster Zone expansion. Chapter 16. The fallen Su Yanran was shocked and finally realized that something was wrong. Fuck it. I'm going to fight you. Zhao Li and his group roared and rushed towards the blood mantis again. It also comes with a difficulty upgrade? On the other side, Cheng Xing couldn't help but grin as he looked at the 5 blood mantises rushing towards him. He didn't know what the person behind him was thinking. If dozens of blood mantises attacked together, Cheng Xing might still avoid their attack. But if he hasn't reached level 10, it might be a bit difficult to go up in batches like this. Now, these dozens of them are not enough for him to kill by himself. But since someone has built the stage, there's no reason for me not to perform. This time, it took Zhao Li and his team 30 minutes to deal with 5 blood mantises. Among them, all the members of the Hound team were seriously injured, and the other 2 teams were slightly injured. On the contrary, Zhao Li and the other 2 who were in charge of the attack were not seriously injured. After the battle, 5 blood mantises came out again and attacked them. At this time, they looked at Cheng Xing with anticipation, hoping that he could help, but after seeing clearly, they were filled with despair. At this time, Cheng Xing was panting, standing with his sword in his hand, his body shaking, as if he would collapse to the ground in the next second. Is Boss Cheng Xing about to give up? The members of Team Terraclaw said with a worried look on their faces. After annihilating this group of blood mantises, they never saw Cheng Xing use his skills again. Come to think of it, low-level group skills all have a disadvantage, which is that they consume a huge amount of physical energy. On the contrary, when Su Yanran saw this scene, her almond-shaped eyes flickered. Knowing the depth of Cheng Xing's strength, she naturally knew how long his fighting power could last. She realized something was wrong and instantly understood what Cheng Xing was trying to do. Seeing that Cheng Xing was exhausted, the number of blood mantises that appeared next time did not change. At this time, Su Yenran slowly stepped forward. The two looked at each other without saying much. Seeing this, the members of the Terror Claw team also rushed over. After another fierce battle of more than 40 minutes, all the members of the Hound Squad on Zhao Li's side were seriously injured and lost their combat effectiveness, while the rest of them were slightly injured, and the gap in talent began to emerge. On Cheng Xing's side, relying on the help of Su Yenran and others, it was extremely difficult to annihilate the blood mantises, and all the members of the horrible Claw Squad were upgraded. At this time, there were only 10 blood mantises left outside the mall. Looking at the few remaining blood mantises, hope rose in everyone's hearts. Sometimes people don't know their limits unless they push themselves. After this wave of attacks, the two C-level talent teams also had players upgrade and recover from their injuries, and they no longer despaired of the remaining blood mantises. Facing the last batch of blood mantises, they roared and took the initiative to attack. With their high morale, the remaining blood mantises couldn't even last 30 minutes. After a great battle, all of Zhao Li's men were injured, but all of them had an expression of having survived a disaster on their faces. Under the moonlight, the entire shopping mall was filled with the broken limbs of blood mantises. The blood soaked the entire ground, and the stench was overwhelming. Zhao Li and his group didn't care about the dirt and mess. They collapsed on the ground and laughed without caring about their image. The oppressive feeling brought by dozens of blood mantises before made them ignore many details. Cheng Xing and Su Yenran supported each other, both looking exhausted. If there is one biggest difference, it is what is revealed. On Zhao Li's side, among the many corpses, there were only a few scattered items. On the other hand, Cheng Xing's feet were full of things, including some equipment emitting a light green light. As their strength recovered, Zhao Li and the others also came to their senses. Greed dispelled the lingering charm of surviving a disaster in their eyes and took the lead. Leave the women behind, and kill all the others. Zhao Li sneered, his greed clearly revealed, and he raised his hand and gave an order. Lu Gu, who was standing aside, had experienced several low points in his life. He saw hope again, and his desire to harm others rose again. All the people behind him who were still able to fight laughed. They had previously fought together against the blood mantises, but now they turned their guns against him. Seeing this, Cheng Xing frowned. He had finally made a nest, but it was not for catching small fish. What do you want to do? The base law clearly prohibits awakened people from killing each other. Su Yenran was a little too immersed in the role at this time and shouted weakly. But her appearance, like a broken flower from a high mountain, aroused the animal nature of those people. This is a disaster zone, a lawless place. No one will know unless we tell them. Stop talking nonsense, and come on together later. After this job, we'll make a fortune. Ah! Then, just as they were about to move, a scream resounded throughout the mall. Hearing the sound, everyone stopped what they were doing and subconsciously turned their heads to look in the direction where the scream came from. At the entrance of the abandoned shopping mall, one of the members of the Hound Squad that was originally stationed there was pierced through the chest by a sickle, and the scream came from him. Who are you? Following the handle of the sickle, a figure slowly walked out of the mall. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that there was someone hiding in the mall, a small team. Before they got an answer, four figures walked out of the mall one after another. The attire is surprisingly consistent, black robe and mask. 4 of the people had several circles printed on their masks, while the last person had several circles printed on the top and bottom. 4 strips and 1 pancake with 1 strip and 2 tubes? Bandits. The masks on their faces are like the 1 pan and 2 tube tiles in Mahjong. Everyone was still wondering why the other party was wearing such a strange mask. The first one to appear raised his hand and drew out the sickle. Blood splattered out, and the Hound teammate died in front of the horrified eyes of the others. Who are you? Seeing a young life passed away made many people feel physically uncomfortable. Zhao Li and others asked with gloomy faces. Boss, it's you who has to do it. First, use the blood mantises to gather them together, then deplete their physical strength, and finally harvest them. Our team's performance is much higher than that of the same period. Faced with the questioning, the Yibings ignored it and dealt with the other hunting dog members with swift movements while complimenting the Ertongs behind them. Looking at their skillful techniques, everyone couldn't help but shudder, especially when they heard what Yibing said. Their faces turned pale for a moment. No one dared to step forward. Chang Xing narrowed his eyes slightly. This is a big fish, then turned his head to look at Su Yenran. At this time, Su Yenran looked at the masks on those people's faces with a solemn expression. You know them. Chang Xing was slightly startled and asked in a low voice. Chang Xing, things are troublesome. They are fallen. Su Yenran nodded and said solemnly. Before Su Yenran could explain what a fallen was, Ertong, who had been silent the whole time, slowly walked out, his eyes falling directly on Chang Xing and the others. Miss Investigator, there are also strong people with S-level talents. Do you know how to level up the fastest? Chapter 17. The only way to quickly upgrade is to kill people. Kill the awakened ones. Chang Xing was stumped by Ertong's sudden question. Why ask this question in this case? Oh? It seems you don't know, but this investigator seems to know. Chang Xing's reaction caught Ertong's eyes. He quickly made his own judgment and spoke calmly. The other two were itching to do something about Ertong's behavior, but due to Ertong's authority, they did not take any further action. The others were also confused as to why this person suddenly started talking to himself. However, some people looked at each other and slowly retreated. Now, retreat! Finding the right opportunity, one of the C-level talent teams instantly broke away from the main force and ran towards the base. This sudden scene left Zhao Li and the others unable to react. A bunch of people are just throwing money around and foolishly listening to what he says. Being alive is the most important thing. When Zhao Li and the others reacted, the team had already disappeared into the abandoned streets and disappeared from everyone's sight. This made them look pale, but they were more regretful about why they didn't seize the opportunity. Then, strangely, those people did not move at all, but instead let out creepy sneers. How foolish! Ertong, who was interrupted, had a dark face under his mask, but his eyes flashed with a bright light. The next moment, two huge black shadows broke through the roof of the shopping mall and rushed in the direction where those people were running. They were so fast that almost no one could see clearly what they were. Chang Xing and the other man had serious expressions on their faces. They both saw clearly that they were two E-level blood mantises. Not long after, four black shadows shot out from the street with a sound of breaking through the air and landed between Ertong and Chang Xing and the others. The people who came were none other than the C-level talent team that had escaped earlier, but now their legs were twisted beyond recognition, and the huge impact force left them on the verge of death. Ahem, sorry to bother you. Let's continue. Ertong straightened his clothes and spoke very politely. This person's behavior and conversation do not seem like that of a murderous executioner. Instead, he seems like a low-key and well-educated member of a family. Just combined with the constant wailing of those four people, it all seemed creepy. Who can tell me how to upgrade the fastest? After saying that, Ertong turned his head to look at Zhao Li and his group, and continued in a gentle voice. If someone answers correctly, I can let him go. Kill the disaster beast. No, it's a smaller group of people killing the disaster beasts. Take the upgraded car. Find someone to lead you. Hearing that there was a way out, everyone stopped caring about other things and rushed to speak. The reason why they were so active was that the two blood mantises that had previously chased the fleeing team had returned and were staring at them not far behind. They could still fight against F-level blood mantises, but those were E-level blood mantises. Theoretically, only 5 adventurers above E-level could fight against them, let alone 2. After hearing their answers, Ertong shook his head in disappointment, then looked at Chang Xing and said word by word. Killing the disaster beasts isn't the fastest whether you're in a group or solo. If you want to level up quickly, you have to kill people, especially the awakened. As soon as these words were spoken, there was silence. Even though Chang Xing was mentally prepared, his pupils suddenly shrank when he heard this answer. In an instant, he remembered what Su Yenran had said before. Don't kill the awakened unless you absolutely have to. So that's how it is. The way for awakened to gain experience is not only by killing disaster beasts, but also by killing awaken themselves. This is why Su Yenran wanted to stop him from killing Lu Gu, because she was afraid that he would discover this secret. The so-called fallen are the awakened who use killing as a means of upgrading. What does it mean that killing is the fastest? But Zhao Li and the others hadn't reacted yet, and asked blankly. It's very simple. The experience you gain from killing disaster beasts is fixed, but if you kill an awakened one, you can absorb all of his experience. Do you know what this means? This means that if a level 1 awakener kills a level 10 awakener, he will directly reach level 10. Ertong's words seemed to carry invisible magic, bewitching everyone present. As soon as these words were spoken, Chang Xing clearly felt that the force on his arm that was grabbed by Su Yenran had increased a lot. She had already guessed the purpose of Ertong saying so much. After all, no matter what force, awakeners with S-level talents are highly valued. After all, when it comes to upgrading, the more talented a person is, the more likely they are to be tempted. The harm caused by an F-level fallen and an S-level fallen can be said to be as great as heaven and earth. If you don't believe me, you can ask the investigator from the Awakener administration. Ertong changed the subject and pointed the finger at Su Yenran. As soon as the 6 words, Awakening Administration, came out, the faces of the people behind Ertong suddenly changed, and they stared at Su Yenran intently. The Awakening Management Bureau is the mortal enemy of these fallen people. It is responsible for capturing, managing, and annihilating these fallen people. The Awakener Administration? What is that? Isn't she an investigator for the Adventurers Guild? Unlike the fallen who were as if they were facing a formidable enemy, Zhao Li and the others looked confused and had never heard of it. You controlled the disaster beasts to besiege the adventurers, and finally used them to disguise the disaster area as an expansion to cover up the truth. You are the Slaughter Cult's S-rank newcomer, the Spirit Seed, right? Seeing that her identity was exposed, Su Yenran did not hide it and revealed Ertong's identity. There are multiple forces among the fallen. Wearing a tube mask is the symbol of the killing cult. Combined with their abilities, their identities are not difficult to guess. I didn't expect I was so famous. However, your bureau has a confidentiality agreement, so I guess you didn't tell him your identity. The Spirit Seed spoke calmly, as if he was sure of victory. As long as you join our killing sect, these experience packs will be given to you. 5 level 10 experience packs, 6 level 9 experience packs, and some other miscellaneous stuff. These experience points are enough for you to reach level 13. With your talent, you'll be able to break through level 20 within half a year. The words of the Spirit Seed were full of temptation to Chang Xing, but to others, they were like a death notice. The group behind him was also dissatisfied. If they divided these experience packs equally, it would be enough for all of them to reach level 10 and put on 2-barrel masks. At this moment, almost everyone looked at Chang Xing, Zhao Li, and the others looked pale. The conditions proposed by Ling Zhong were too tempting. They didn't think Chang Xing would refuse. Su Yenran also had a worried look on her face. Just as she was about to speak, she was stopped by someone raising a hand. I don't think you're right, Chang Xing said calmly, as if he was not bewitched at all. What's wrong? The fastest way to level up is to solo a disaster beast of a higher level. Chang Xing gave his answer lightly. What do you mean by killing people is the fastest way to level up? It's obviously killing monsters. His answer obviously stunned the Spirit Seed. He was soloing the disaster beast above his level. He knew every word here, but when they were put together, he had a hard time understanding them. Chapter 18. Closing the need. As soon as these words were spoken, the surroundings fell into silence again. How dare you play tricks on me? His expression was gloomy beneath the Spirit Seed mask, and he felt insulted. The Spirit Seed shook his head in disappointment and raised his hand coldly. I turned my heart to the bright moon, but it only shines on the ditch. Come on. Leave no one behind. Following the order from the Spirit Seed, the 4 Yibings were filled with murderous intent and could no longer contain themselves as they rushed towards Zhao Li and the others. At the same time, the 2 E-level blood mantises' eyes lit up red and launched an attack together. The Spirit Seed did not target Chang Xing, but first harvested Zhao Li's experience packs, just to let him see when to kill the sex methods. At this time, He was sure of victory. Everyone's physical strength had been consumed by him using F-level blood mantises, and their combat power was almost gone. Even the 5 level 10 awakeners were no match for the 2 E-level blood mantises. With the blood mantis on his face, he didn't know how to lose. Why us? It's not fair. The men under Zhao Li were wailing. He desperately resisted the attacks of 4 murderous believers. These people relied on killing to level up, and their attack methods were something they had never seen before. Coupled with the E-level blood mantis behind them, he was filled with despair. The double blow of physical and psychological damage left many people seriously injured in just a moment. Chang Xing and the other person looked at each other and nodded at the same time. After walking the fish, it's time to get the landing net. The next moment, the 2 figures disappeared at the same time. Upon closer inspection, they each appeared in front of a blood mantis. 4-way slash. Cold sword encirclement. Following 2 light shouts, a flash of swords and sabers was dazzling. The 2 E-level blood mantises were hit by the 2 men and flew backwards, blood splattering all over their bodies and wailing. This movement stunned everyone. Aren't they exhausted? How can I release skills? It was already terrifying that Chang Xing could repel the E-level blood mantis, but considering his previous terrifying combat power, it seemed reasonable. But it was shocking that Su Yanran was able to fight it off. At this moment, everyone remembered that they had only cared about her beauty from the beginning and never thought about how a woman like her dared to investigate alone in the disaster area. You also have an S-level talent? Ling Zhong's face was gloomy, and things seemed to be beyond his control. Unexpectedly, both of them have S-level talents and they even teamed up to act out a drama. Boss Chang Xing is awesome. Sister Su is awesome. Seeing this, the Terror Claw squad couldn't help but cheer. Upon hearing this, the people who were besieged by the murderous believers also showed joy on their faces, and faced with their attacks, they seemed to be ready to fight back. After all, they just have no strength, not dead. Ling Zhong frowned slightly. The advantage in the current situation was no longer on his side. He could not consume all the experience packs relying on his men alone. He could only rely on the blood mantis to cripple them and then harvest them. Now that the blood mantises are blocked, they will be defeated as long as they are wiped out. Thinking of this, the spirit seed seemed to be no longer as calm as before. Damn it! Why isn't my innate spiritual seed SS level? If it were SS level, I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. The spirit seed looked at the situation in front of him, as if he was affected by Chang Xing's previous words. His talent allowed him to plant spirit seeds in the bodies of disaster beasts and thus control them. There were 3 of the same level and 50 of the lower level. Although he is very powerful, he has a shortcoming. That is, the disaster beasts he controls will not gain experience when they kill disaster beasts or awaken people. Soon the spirit seed realized that it was affected by Chang Xing's words, and instantly adjusted itself and regained its composure. Looking at the believers who were in a stalemate and the blood mantises that were retreating step by step, an idea suddenly occurred to him, and the corners of his mouth under the mask curled up at a strange angle. Do you want to join the slaughter cult? We don't look at talent or background. We just want you to prove yourself. We'll all accept you. Ling Zhong looked down at Zhao Li and his group who were resisting stubbornly, and spoke. His words were like the whispers of a devil, constantly bewitching their minds. The dangers they encountered when they formed a team to kill the disaster beast. The rejection of certain teams because of their talent, and other experiences could not help but replay in their minds. Many people were shaken after hearing his words. Don't be deceived by him. He's at the end of his rope. He just needs to hold on a little longer until we get rid of the blood mantises, and everything will be fine. Also, let me remind you, as long as you kill people and become fallen, you will become the enemy of every base. Seeing that the spiritual seed actually bewitched them, Su Yanran's expression changed slightly and she quickly spoke. After Su Yanran's reminder, everyone suddenly came to their senses. That's right, everyone. Hold on a little longer. At this time, Zhao Li also hurriedly spoke to calm everyone down. After hearing Ling Zhong's words, he had the urge to attack the people around him at that moment. But Su Yanran's words, enemies of all bases, brought him back to his senses. After repeated reminders, Everyone finally understood, and the look of despair disappeared from their faces. Seeing this, Ling Zhong knew that he had failed this time, and it was time to prepare a retreat. Just as he was about to abandon his men and flee, a scream echoed through the night sky. Ah! Zhao Liding's eyes widened. Above his chest, a sword blade protruded, filled with scarlet liquid, soaking his shirt with blood. When he turned around and saw the person who attacked, his pupils suddenly shrank. Why? I helped you, Lu Gu. Lu Gu's eyes were red and his face was ferocious. I can't help it. I'm different from you. There's no place for me in the base anymore. Don't blame anyone. Blame them. He roared hysterically and drew out his sword. Zhao Li fell to the ground powerlessly, without a breath left. Until his death, he could not believe that Lu Gu would actually attack him. With the death of Zhao Li, a flash of light appeared on Lu Gu's body. Although it was not bright, it was particularly conspicuous in the night and was creepy. Is this the Fallen? After killing Zhao Li, his experience allowed Lu Gu, who had not been promoted for half a year, to be promoted. Feeling the endless power in his body, he couldn't help but sigh. The next moment, he rushed out quickly and attacked the other teams. Those people were able to resist the attacks of the murderous believers, but they were still not strong enough when facing a fully healthed E-level adventurer. They were ruthlessly harvested by Lu Gu like melons and vegetables being cut. Faced with their pleas for mercy, he showed no mercy and wailing broke out everywhere. In just a few breaths, all the people in Zhao Li's group who were still standing were killed. At this time, Lu Gu had already reached level 13. Looking at Lu Gu who was killing everyone, the spirit seed stopped. Just an E-level talent? Never mind. It's enough. Killing everyone who was standing, Lu Gu even did not let go of those who had their legs broken by blood mantises while trying to escape, and killed them one by one with his sword. Aren't you guys C-level talents? Why aren't you yelling? Aren't you looking down on me? Lu Gu roared as he killed. There was madness in his eyes, as if those people were not human beings, but tools for him to vent his anger. Save me. The C-level talent team, lying on the ground helpless, raised their hands to ask Cheng Xing and others for help. However, the only response they received was the long sword in Lu Gu's hand. Xiao Su, killing the Fallen isn't illegal, right? Cheng Xing repelled the blood mantis with a knife, looked at the crazy Lu Gu in the distance, and asked calmly. Su Yenran dodged the attack of the blood mantis, glanced at it, smiled, and said calmly, "Of course, those who kill will be killed." Chapter 19 Killing Lu Gu Town. Abandoned shopping mall. Lu Gu drew out his sword, but the last person under him had already stopped moving. Cheng Xing in the distance slashed with a knife, bringing out a knife light. The E-level blood mantis flew out in response and exploded 2 pieces of materials when it landed. Su Yenran on the side followed closely behind and quickly took care of another blood mantis. Now you. Lu Gu's eyes were red and he was grinning, looking like he was about to kill someone. He ignored Su Yenran and the remaining members of the Terror Claw team, stared at Cheng Xing, and then rushed towards him quickly. The speed of its movements far exceeds that of E-level blood mantises. When the Awakener reaches level 10, the attribute points obtained with each upgrade will far exceed those before level 10, and the free attribute points will increase 5-fold to 15 points. This is why the spirit felt like it was being fooled when it heard Cheng Xing's answer. As the level increases, the gap between each level will only get bigger and bigger, and it will become difficult to kill enemies of higher levels, let alone higher ranks. The swords collided, sparks flew, and suddenly there was a sharp sound of iron colliding. Cheng Xing felt a huge force coming from the hilt of the knife, which made him take several steps back and his palm became numb. Seeing Cheng Xing falling into a disadvantage, Lu Gu sneered and continued to chase him. You're pretending. Aren't you very good at pretending? After several consecutive heavy attacks, Cheng Xing concluded that Lu Gu must have put all his points into strength. So, Cheng Xing no longer confronted Lu Gu head-on, but relied on flexible movement to dodge Lu Gu's attacks. With his high agility and F-level talent sprint, Lu Gu couldn't even touch him. Why are you hiding? Isn't it an SSS-level talent? Seeing that his attack failed to hit Cheng Xing, Lu Gu's face showed anger, and he spoke sarcastically. But it would be strange if Chang Xing was fooled by such a low-level provocation. He chose the right moment and slashed with his knife. Lu Gu quickly blocked the attack and then counterattacked. However, before he swung half of his sword, Chang Xing appeared several meters away. "Fuck! Don't run!" Lu Gu roared in frustration and rage. "Even if you reach level 13, you're still useless." Seeing this, the spirit seed in the distance frowned. He naturally saw Lu Gu's added points and couldn't help but curse inwardly. "Go, help him." But the Lu Gu in front of him is his only hope of turning the tables. After losing the disaster beast, his combat power is even lower than that of an ordinary level 10 awakener. Thinking of this, he gave an order to his subordinate Yibing. Although those who had no experience were reluctant, they did not dare to disobey the orders of the spirit seeds. After all, he has S-level talent, and his status in the killing sect is far higher than that of ordinary people. Even Santong has to bow his head in front of him. For murderous cultists wearing masks on their heads rushed towards Chang Xing with weapons in hand, trying to restrict his movements. Then, before they could get close, a figure appeared in front of them. "This road is blocked." Su Yenran stood with a sword in her hand, her 3,000 black hair moving in the wind, her face as cold as ice, and her eyes alone forced everyone to stop. "Don't be afraid. Let's go together." Yibing, holding a sickle, gritted his teeth and said in a cold voice. Immediately, the four of them attacked together. Cold sword encirclement. Su Yenran shouted coldly, unsheathed the long sword in his hand, and the sword light burst out. And these cakes were torn apart in an instant by the sword light. How could four killing believers who were not even at level 10 be Su Yenran's opponents? After killing these murderous cultists, Su Yenran's body emanated a faint glow, and at first glance she looked like a fairy descending to earth. She looks beautiful and her upgraded special effects make her look unique. On the other side, Lu Gu kept swinging his sword to attack, but what he didn't notice was that all his attacks just brushed past Chang Xing. The power gained from 3 consecutive level-ups gradually made him addicted. At this moment, he felt that he could do anything. Almost, it's time to end it. After feeling that his body had adapted to Lu Gu's fighting movements, Chang Xing narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. "What did you say?" Lu Gu was stunned for a moment, and then he found that Chang Xing was actually rushing towards him. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. He raised the long sword in his hand and struck Huashan with lightning speed. Chang Xing did not dodge or evade, letting the sword fall. In an instant, the sword was only a fist away from his face. Seeing this scene, the members of the Terror Claw squad were so frightened that they covered their eyes and dared not look. The winner is decided. After all, I'm too arrogant. Even a fully awakened person can't avoid it from this distance. Seeing this, the spirit in the distance stopped, taking half a step back and shook his head. There is a 3-level attribute gap, and Lu Gu still has all points in strength. If this attack hits, Chang Xing will definitely die. Lu Gu grinned grimly. Chang Xing couldn't escape from this distance. It was as if the scene of Chang Xing being split in half by a sword had appeared before his eyes. Block. When? The next moment, there was a deafening sound of golden swords and iron halberds clashing. Lu Gu felt a huge force rebounding, and the long sword in his hand was almost shaken away, and his entire arm lost consciousness. And Chang Xing in front of him had the blood mantis fang in his hand. E-rank skill block. Are you still hiding your strength? The expression on Lu Gu's face froze. He didn't expect that Chang Xing still had hidden strength. I'm waiting for my body to adjust. What are you waiting for? Chang Xing smiled coldly and moved forward. That's impossible. Looking at Chang Xing's relaxed expression, Lu Gu felt the pleasure of leveling up fade away, and the fantasy of invincibility in his heart seemed to be shattered by the previous sword. The drop from heaven to hell made him roar in anger. He immediately gathered his strength and launched another all-out attack. 4-way slash. When? There was another loud bang, and a figure flew backwards several meters and fell to the ground. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be Lu Gu, who was of a higher rank. Lu Gu's face was full of shock at this time. The severe pain in his chest brought him back to his senses. He looked down and saw 4 hideous wounds on his chest. Looking at the figure approaching not far away, Lu Gu subconsciously wanted to fight back, but when he raised his hand, he saw that the sword in his hand had already broken into 2 pieces. At this moment, he felt fear again. "Please, let me go." This time Cheng Xing didn't give him any chance. He took a step forward and slashed mercilessly with the long sword in his hand. Lu Gu widened his eyes and covered his neck with his hands, but he was completely unable to stop the flow of the warm liquid. The power that had been surging from his body now disappeared like the receding tide. Why? He didn't understand why. Even after reaching level 13, he was still no match for Cheng Xing. But no one gave him an answer. Level up 10-13. Gain free attribute points plus 45. Cheng Xing put away his knife and walked towards Su Yanran and the others without looking back. If Lu Gu had not killed his own kind and become a fallen, his identity as an awakened one would have been his greatest escape from death. Well, now you're the only one left. Cheng Xing looked up at the spirit seed at the entrance of the mall and said lightly, "That's not necessarily true." At this time, the spirit seed did not make any move to escape, but looked at Cheng Xing and the others who were slowly approaching very calmly. He knew very well that without controlling the disaster beast, any one of the 2 men in front of him could pin him to the ground. "You guys made me lose miserably." Ling Zhong tidied his clothes, then took out a black ball the size of a baby's fist from his pocket. He played with it while speaking slowly. Cheng Xing frowned slightly at the strange reaction of the spirit seed. The sphere gave him a feeling of extreme danger. When Su Yanran saw the black ball in Ling Zhong's hand, her pupils suddenly shrank, and she immediately raised her hand to grab Cheng Xing. Cheng Xing subconsciously looked back and found that Su Yanran's face was full of solemnity. It was a solemnity that he had never seen before. Chapter 20 Disasters. Disaster. Cheng Xing heard an unfamiliar term again, but from the solemnity on Su Yanran's face, he could tell that this thing was extremely dangerous. "We'll see each other again." The spirit seed didn't waste any words. He looked at Cheng Xing deeply and then crushed the black ball in his hand. The black sphere burst, and a heart-pounding energy wave immediately spread around. After doing all this, the spirit seed retreated slowly and disappeared into the shadows of the mall. Seeing this, Cheng Xing was about to chase after him, but was pulled back by Su Yanran. "Everyone, pack up quickly and return to base." Su Yanran did not explain immediately, but shouted to the remaining Terror Claw team. Everyone in the Terror Claw team looked at each other, and finally saw Cheng Xing nod. Then they hurriedly collected all the spoils on the ground as quickly as possible. A minute later, Su Yanran led everyone and rushed straight towards the South China base. Cheng Xing did not ask any further questions about this. If Su Yanran could give up chasing the spirit seeds, then the next thing must be far more important than hunting down the fallen. Since meeting Su Yanran, Cheng Xing has discovered that the world is far from as simple as he imagined. There is the awakening administration in front of him and the disaster behind him. There are too many things he doesn't know. Thinking of this, Cheng Xing's eyes flickered, as if he was thinking about something. "Wait a minute, I have something here. Is that enough time?" The group moved very quickly and soon arrived at the edge of the disaster area in L-Town. When passing by a relatively intact high-rise building, Cheng Xing suddenly spoke. "It's enough time, but if it's not something valuable, then don't give it to me." Su Yanran was stunned for a moment, looked at the time, and said subconsciously. After getting the answer he wanted, Cheng Xing quickly borrowed a few useless large backpacks from the Terror Claw team and rushed into the high-rise building. A minute later, Cheng Xing rushed out of the high-rise building carrying bags. Through the zipper that had not been tightened yet, everyone saw that the backpack was full of disaster beast materials and more than a dozen pieces of equipment. If all these things were sold, it would probably be worth several million. Su Yanran couldn't help but widen her eyes. With so many equipment and materials, she could hardly tell whether he was here to upgrade or to purchase supplies. Could this guy really be an SSS-level talent? "Help me carry it, and I'll give you 10% when I get back." After Cheng Xing brought the things out, he raised his hand and waved to the Terror Claw team. Upon hearing this, everyone in the Terror Claw team's eyes lit up and they rushed forward to share the burden. Only then did they realize how satisfying it was to win by relying on others. After packing up all the spoils, they did not linger any longer but rushed to the base as fast as possible. When he was in L Town, Chang Xing noticed something was wrong. As he walked along, he saw that all the disaster beasts in L Town were rushing towards one place frantically. This place is the mall. They even encountered crazy rabbits a few times on their way out, but they didn't even look at them. After leaving the disaster area, Su Yenran was obviously relieved, and at the same time, groups of troops appeared in sight. Seeing so many base troops, the Claw Squad was shocked. They had never seen so many base troops deployed together. The base troops quickly discovered Chang Xing and the others and quickly stepped forward to ask questions. When Su Yenran showed a certain document, an officer came out of the team. First they checked, then respectfully asked Su Yenran to leave, leaving only Chang Xing and his group. Is something wrong with Sister Su? The Terror Claw team looked at the numerous base troops around them and couldn't help but worry. Don't worry. These base troops should have been called by her. When leaving the mall, he saw Su Yenran take out his cell phone to contact someone. After the end of the world, all previous digital products have become obsolete and have been replaced by new products made from materials used in disaster beasts. However, the prices are extremely expensive, and he, who lives in Area H, naturally cannot afford them. Not long after, Su Yenran came back respectfully surrounded by officers. After saluting, she led the base troops towards L Town. Let's go back. The rest of the matter is not something we can get involved in. Su Yenran looked at the direction the base army was heading and said softly. After turning around, he met Chang Xing's eyes. As he walked towards the base, he spoke slowly. Disaster species is a concept proposed by scholars specializing in the study of disaster beasts a few years ago. They believe there must be an energy source within the disaster beast, and this energy source is the source of its power. The source of this power is the disaster seed, and scholars believe that the disaster seed can be dropped by killing disaster beasts. When he heard that it could drop, Chang Xing raised his brows. If it could drop, why didn't he see it? As if seeing his doubts, Su Yenran smiled slightly and continued. To get the drops of disaster species, you need to kill an E-level or higher creature. The drop rate is very low. This results in the number of disaster types being extremely rare. Once they appear, they are immediately acquired by the base, resulting in very few people knowing about them. As for its function, what we know so far is its absolute attraction to disaster beasts. Having said that, Su Yenran recalled the disaster seeds in Lingzhong's hand and continued. Judging from the size of the disaster seed in Lingzhong's hand, it should be a disaster seed dropped by a sea-level disaster beast above level 30. That disaster is enough to attract all sea-level and lower disaster beasts within a radius of 100 miles, thus triggering a beast tide. When they heard that they would be surrounded by sea-level disaster beasts, the members of the Terror Claw team couldn't help but tremble. Fortunately, Sister Su reminded them, otherwise they would not know how they died. Chang Xing now understood why Su Yenran gave up hunting for the spirit seeds. Firstly, the spirit creature wouldn't surrender docilely, and no one knew if it had any backup plans. Secondly, the L-Town disaster zone was too close to the base, and on the edge of the Qingqing disaster zone, where a large number of sea-level disaster beasts were gathered, posing a significant threat to the base. If the A-level disaster beast in the center of Qingqing was disturbed, the consequences would be disastrous. After weighing the pros and cons, they had no choice but to give up the pursuit and immediately notify the top management of the base to take countermeasures. After the explanation, the high walls of the base appeared in everyone's sight. Passing through the huge steel door, we returned to the adventurer camp at the beginning. At this time, in the camp, although it was already night, there were still many adventurers gathered here. They all wanted to go out of the city to hunt disaster beasts, but unexpectedly they were informed that adventurers below level C were not allowed to leave the city in the next few days, and there was a lot of noise for a while. Seeing the familiar adventurer camp, the Terror Claw team, who had been on the brink of death, relaxed and collapsed on the ground. First they were chased by blood mantises, then they were besieged by a group of blood mantises, and then a group of fallen jumped out. If they had not clung to Chang Xing and the others firmly at the beginning, they would probably have ended up like the Hound Squad. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but look at Cheng Xing and the others with gratitude. Their actions were immediately noticed by some sharp-eyed people in the camp. Considering that they had just returned from outside, they might know what had happened. So many people approached them quietly, but before they got close, several figures blocked their way. Guild investigators are on duty. Please do not approach.